Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
TD in 1 hour. So we got a lot. Now we got 2 days with pads on. We got the Simmons drama. We got the Arden Key suspension. We got all kinds of stuff to get into with TD in 1 hour, which I am very, very excited about. So I do read the text line, and sometimes people say, Jared, my text going through? I mean, is somebody reading my text? But trust me, your texts are going through. And sometimes if they don't get read, it's because they're not good enough to get on the air. But we see them. And yesterday, I would say we probably had, 5 or 6 of the probably 600 text messages we get during the show. But we got about 5 or 6 text messages that were like, can we please stop talking about the Jeffrey Simmons story? Can we please stop talking about it? And I can be honest with everybody out there. The answer, first off, is yes, for right now. But the show, as much as I love the people that listen for 4 hours at a time, the show is not for that. The show is for the people that listen for about 30 minutes at a time, 45 minutes at a time on a commute home. And the gal who's driving at 246 is not the same as the guy who's driving at 442. It's just, it is what it is. And that was the number one story by a landslide. But I do think the actual football is important. So I want to start off by talking about where the Titans stand as we sit right here, right now. So I'm just going to run through it. I woke up this morning and I was like, let's just, from where I see it, where does this team sit? It's very early in practice. They've worn the pads for 2 days. And again, the one thing that we do not know, if somebody is playing well, is it good job wide receiver? Is it bad job corner? Is it good throw quarterback? Is it bad coverage defense? They don't even sack the quarterback at this point in time. And trust me, there have been a lot of sacks that would have been sacks in games. So keep that in mind. Number one, let's start on offense. The Titans are set at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, left tackle, left guard, and center. That is nothing new to any of you guys, but they are set at those positions. Levis is the quarterback. We know who the 2 running backs are. We know who the 3 receivers are. We know who the left tackle is, and the left tackle has been very impressive, in my opinion, so far through the start of training camp. We know who the left guard is. Now, he has not been as impressive as the left tackle has been, but based on draft pedigree and who else is there, he's starting. And we know the center obviously is starting, and I was very impressed by what he said at the podium the other day. Very quiet leader-like qualities with Lloyd Cushenberry, but they're set at those positions. Number 2, there is a legitimate battle at tight end 1 between Josh Wiley and Chiga Okonkwo. Right now, if I was handicapping it, I would give the odds to Wiley. But I have concerns about Wiley's health. He was injured in college, and he was injured last year. That haven't been a problem so far this year. And obviously, I have concerns when it comes to Chig about his ability to catch the ball. But so far through training camp, from what I've seen, Chig has been able to catch the ball. So I do think there's a legitimate battle. Again, I give a slight edge to Wiley, but I think that it is really neck and neck between those two. And the reason I go Wiley is I just feel like I felt him more than Chig, but every time Wiley makes a good catch, it's like, okay, then they come back 2 plays later and they get the ball to Chig. But Wiley also has the bigger frame. And that with a guy like Levis, that might make things a little easier. Number 3. Right guard seems to be a battle between Sadiq Charles and Dylan Radins. I don't know what's happened to Daniel Brunskill, but he's on the side of a milk carton. To me, it's Charles versus Radins. Charles, I would argue, is in the lead, but I was very unimpressed by Sadiq Charles yesterday. Did not notice Sadiq Charles, which at the guard position is probably a pretty good thing. Did not notice him on Tuesday, but I did notice him. Well, wait a minute. Did not notice him on Wednesday, but I did notice it. No, today's Thursday. Did not notice him on Tuesday, but I did notice him on Wednesday, and I noticed him in a bad way. So right now we got a battle between Radence and Charles. The difference is, though, Charles is big and thick, and I mean, he's a big old fat boy. And Radence is not fat. Like Radence, you can see he's kind of got that tweener guard tackle body. And I don't know if Radence is physically as intimidating or as tough, pushing as Sadiq Charles is, which we're talking about playing guard. But I was not impressed with Charles yesterday. Right tackle. I mean, I hate to say it, they don't have one. So they hope to get Nicholas T. Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
They hope to get PT back tomorrow. And right now, John Ojukwu is ahead of Jalen Duncan, which probably tells you more about Jalen Duncan than it does about John Ojukwu. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to see if PT gets back into the lineup, and if PT either doesn't get back in the lineup or he does get in the lineup and he doesn't impress. I would not be surprised to see one of Callahan's guys. Remember, they played for him in Cleveland last year, Leroy Watson or Jaron Christian. It would not surprise me to see one of those guys stuck out at right tackle in the near future. Now, I would argue that so far my three favorite linemen have been Latham, Cushenberry, and Jaron Christian. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go to defense. Defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive line, set. Simmons, Sweat, and Sebastian Joseph Day. The outside linebacker, Harold Landry, occupies, set. Safety, set. And as I, go through that list, most notably, Tavondre Sweat has provided almost zero reason to be concerned. Ian sends out the rundown of the show, the breakdown of what was what after it's over. And there was a day that I was on vacation, and I don't know who was filling in for me. I think it might have been Bingen. But in it, one of the questions was, what does Tavondre Sweat have to do to keep Jared from bitching about Tavondre Sweat? And so far, everything he's done, so far, so good. The other outside linebacker spot, which is Arden Key's spot, is clearly a question, given his pending 6-game suspension. And I do think TD will probably have more on kind of the options in the next hour, but I do think that Shane Ray right now, if I had to handicap it, I'd say he's probably the leader in the clubhouse. That a guy who has not played football in 6 years is right now leading to start opposite Harold Landry. We talk about the free agent options that are out there, but I don't know if the Titans are going to do that, if they're going to spend the money for a replacement for 6 games, as opposed to just riding it out with a Shane Ray or a Thomas Rush or a Caleb Murphy or whomever. Yesterday, Denard Wilson made it sound like they're not. Inside linebacker, Kenneth Murray is locked in, and it feels like Jack Gibbons is locked in too. So I said that I didn't use inside linebacker as a position that they were set at, but I kind of feel like they are. And I haven't even noticed Cedric Gray one time. I told you guys, when you draft a guy with the 106th pick in the 4th round, the idea of that 4th rounder is starting right away, I kind of have a hard time getting there. I kind of like that. To me, that's the 2nd round, 1st round, yeah. Draft a guy in 2nd round, unless it's quarterback, you should be able to start right away. But the 4th round's maybe a little different. And then corner. Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed have both missed significant practice time. Sneed's was planned. Awuzie's was not. Guess who's been in the mix, Ian?
Who's that?
Trey Avery.
Oh, okay.
Trey Avery has been in the mix, made some plays here and there. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the 5th round pick out of Louisville, he's made some plays here and there. My buddy's the athletic director at Louisville. He told me when they drafted him, he said, if he's healthy, he's great in coverage and he's physical. And I'm like, I hate that first part, but I love the second part. And Jarvis Brownlee has looked the part, had one where he was down yesterday, and I thought, oh, God, this is exactly what he's talking about when he said if he's healthy. But so far, so good. And Gabe Judy Lolly, by the way, He's going to make the team. Like, I know it's early. I know he's an undrafted free agent. I'm telling you right now, Gabe Judy-Lolly's making the team. He's been in the mix, and Roger McCreary's still Roger McCreary. And just a couple little other observations. Traylon Burks and Chikakonkwo still look like superstars in practice, but they looked like superstars in practice last year. The defense is ahead of the offense, which is typical for this time of the year, but there have been way too many quote-unquote sacks where they basically, the quarterback would have been sacked, but they don't stop the play, and then Levis throws the pass anyways. There have been far too many of those for my liking, but again, work in progress. And so where we sit right now, Jared, how are the Titans doing at camp? They need to figure out tight end 1, right guard, right tackle, Arden Key's position, and kind of the hierarchy of the corners behind Awuzie and Snead when those guys eventually come back. So that's how we're starting the show. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on that. And I decide, okay, we're going to talk about the state of the team there at the beginning. Then the second question that I'm sure all of you have that might be your first question. Jared, how is Will Levis doing? The short answer, it's complicated. The long answer, next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Working on our different answers versus different fronts and different looks, and just coming back to them. And I feel like we've done a good job of not making the same mistake twice and picking them up after we've seen them. So it's like a game week when you're able to go through the pressure tape and dial in on what you're doing on all these looks. We're kind of getting to the point where we've kind of built that log of what we've seen against our guys, and it's good to see the progress we've made as of now.
That was Will Levis talking yesterday about how far they've, come along in the last week or so at training camp. So I know a lot of people have this question. In fact, somebody texted me today and said, how's Will Levis looking? And it was funny, Ian, because I literally just copied out of the Word document with which I kind of draw the grid up on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I just copied it and pasted it and sent it to him because I know that's what people want. How's Levis looking? How's he looking, Jared? Give me the scoop. Let me say this. It's hard to say. Now, it's hard to say for a couple reasons. The first reason for me is I just want to be completely transparent with everybody. I'm watching the offensive line. So when everybody wants, the one-on-ones are going on, quarterback, receiver, DB, this guy broke this up, this guy caught this guy. I'm down there watching the hog mollies while Bill Callahan's coaching them up. I can tell you that Jalen Duncan's got to get his hips in better placement because I'm watching Bill Callahan coach those guys up. So that's the first thing. Second thing is this. It's hard to say because on one hand, Will Levis looks the part of a starting quarterback, and he seems to be doing the part to earn the respect that a quarterback carries with his team. Now, the ultimate quarterback respect comes with when you win. Joe Burrow is able to have that kind of cockiness, confidence, whatever it may be, because those Bengal players know, hey, when the ball's in Joe's hands, we win. Levis doesn't have that yet. But as far as, being the first guy in the building, as far as, working constantly, trying to communicate with the coaches and the offensive line and the receivers, he's doing his part there. But some of his throws have a little too much juice on them. Throws a ball down the sideline, and it ends up 3 yards out of bounds. Some of the throws he's had, have been short, quick game stuff, and it's not been accurate. But sometimes that can be the receiver's fault, not being where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be. And some of the things they've done, Levis even said yesterday, like, hey, in practice, and Brian Callahan said this at the beginning of practice, that there are going to be things they try in practice that if this were a game, if this were week 4 or 5 or whatever it is against Indianapolis, they're going to say, hey, check that ball down to Tony Pollard. Do not try to squeeze that ball in there to get it to Ridley. But right now, he's trying to learn what his limitations are, so he's going to try to squeeze the ball in there and get it to Ridley. The other thing with Levis that makes it very hard for me to really get a feel of how he's doing is there's been a lot of pressure. But they cannot hit the quarterback. They can't touch the quarterback. And the quarterback finishes the play no matter what. So there have been some where I'm looking at a play and I'm like, sack, and they follow through with the play. And with those, there's no way to know what would have been a sack or what Levis would have been able to avoid or what he would have been able to get out of. Or there's no way to know. And you have to remember at the same time, the mentality of the quarterback, like his psyche, is he knows he's not getting hit. And I'll give you an example. Last year, Ryan Tannehill took 3 snaps, 3 handoffs against the Patriots in the preseason finale at home, which I thought was the most disingenuous thing the Titans have done in a long time. And that's saying something because it's the Titans. But Ryan Tannehill got essentially 0 preseason snaps last year. And in the first game against New Orleans, he got hit a couple times and he wasn't the same guy for the rest of that game. And so I am very excited when Brian Callahan says, we're going to play these guys in the preseason, and Levis needs to play in the preseason. You can make the argument for a veteran quarterback not needing to play in the preseason. Not a young quarterback. Levis needs the reps. But we'll get a better idea of how Levis is looking when they get out there, and there is a possibility that if he doesn't get the ball off in time, or if John Ojukwu and Sadiq Charles can't block on the right side of the line, then we'll find out, okay, he's going to get his face planted into the ground. So I cannot tell you how he looks because, again, the real question is, what's it going to look like when the bullets are flying? The bullets aren't flying for the quarterback. He can't be hit. some of the things that he's trying in practice, he said, and the coaches said, hey, we're going to try it out in practice, but if this was Chicago, we're going to check the ball down to Tajay Spears. We're going to check the ball down to Tony Pollard. So far as is Levis getting him in and out of the huddle? Is Levis getting him lined up? Yes, he is. But he should be doing that. He's a second-year player. Is Levis recognizing the coverages? I have no way of knowing that. And then, of course, is Levis performing well with the receivers? And it's complicated when it comes to practice. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Bob is going to kick us off. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bob, go ahead.
Hey, Jared. How you today?
Good.
Hey, question about the Arden Key suspension. I know he's going to be suspended 6 games, but from what I read, he was practicing yesterday. So how does the practice work, like in preseason up till the season? Does he practice during his thing? He just can't play, or is once the season officially starts, he can't practice at all?
All right, thanks, Bob. So I don't want to sound like one of these, league compensated bozos that says, well, it's not official yet that it is a 6-game suspension. So, but it technically is not official yet. I keep wondering, when are we going to hear Arden Key's excuse for why he took performance-enhancing drugs? Was it in his Flintstones vitamins? Was it in his cough syrup? Was it, like Danico Autry said, Publix or Walgreens or CVS's fault? What's the excuse here? Because I know these pro players don't say things like, yeah, I cheated. So what's the excuse going to be? But we don't know yet because he hasn't had to put out a statement yet because the league has technically not made it official. But the way these things work, and PT is an example of this last year, but the way these things work is he's with the team throughout training camp and the preseason, and on the Wednesday before the Chicago game, he goes away for 6 weeks and then doesn't come back until the week, I would believe it's Detroit is the game that he's back for. So on Wednesday before they play Detroit, he gets back with the team. That's how it works. Tom Brady took a trip to Italy with Giselle when he was suspended for 4 games. So that's how it works. One thing I don't like, and I was a little surprised by, Arden Key was running with the ones yesterday. I don't know why I do that. I mean, I need to get Shane Ray those reps. I need to get Rashad Weaver those reps. I need to get Thomas Rush those reps. I know what Arden Key is. And then Arden Key is going to take a 6-week break. So I wouldn't be running him with the ones right now if that were me. But who knows? 615-737-1025. One texter says, Jared, with all of these offensive line battles, why don't we hear about Brunskill at right guard and Radence at right tackle? It seems to me like it's the best fit for now. It may seem that way to you, but it doesn't to Bill Callahan. So this is where, again, I felt like I was wrongfully cheated in Jared versus Joe yesterday when Joe said he was more worried about right tackle than I was. And I said, he said 8, I said 7 because Bill Callahan gets 3. Of all the guys they have at right tackle, in my opinion, the last 6 games or whatever it was, Dylan Radence was the best right tackle the Titans have had in 2 years. I'm not saying Radence is a starter at right tackle in the NFL, but what he was the best they've had in 2 years. Well, I was stunned when Brian Callahan said at the combine, yeah, he's going to play guard. But we have to assume that Bill Callahan knows something that we don't. Now, Bill Callahan made it clear this week when he talked, he's going to be moving guys around. And I did see some individual drills where Radence was on the outside of a run blocking drill, which would indicate a tackle position. But I don't know. And I don't think the Titans, I don't know if Brunskill's going to make this team. To me, it's either Brunskill's not going to make the team and they're going to save the money and they're going to release him, or Brunskill is for sure going to make the team because he can play all the positions. And for that, I can't answer. One texter says, how many interceptions has Will Levis thrown in camp? I don't know. I know he threw 2 on Tuesday, but I couldn't tell you. about the raw number of interceptions he's thrown, nor do I really care. I mean, unless it's like Tannehill, where it's just constant in 2021, it's not really that big of a deal, especially when, again, the quarterback and the coach have told you, hey, we're going to try to iron some things out here. We're going to try to work on things, see if we can do it in games. And if we can't do it in a game, then we're going to check the ball down when we play Chicago. So I wouldn't worry about that. I don't worry right now about the stats in training camp because the guys Malik, for instance, is going up against are not guys he would ever face in a real NFL game. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. The Titans apparently have a practice tomorrow. It is not open to the media, but there is one thing the Titans have talked about, that they have talked about. Bill Callahan's talked about it. Brian Callahan's talked about it. Will Levis has talked about it. They need it to happen, and they need them to be right and me to be wrong. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pregame is at 5:50. First pitch, 6:05. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Call Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. With the offensive line, how much of it is taking it after the day and then seeing how they improve off of what they did the first day of pads, either next week or
that's a lot. That's a lot of it. Most of the time, especially this first day, you see the technique sort of falls apart because the pads are on and it changes and they settle back in and they start playing better. And so it's always going to be about not repeating mistakes. And so if you've made a mistake, you make a technique error, it's how quickly can you get it fixed and how quickly can you then execute it again in the same spot. And so that's the name of the game. That's the guys that are going to play are the guys that kind of every day, if they make a mistake, they don't repeat it. And so that's an important part of stacking consistency for those guys. And that's ultimately what you're looking for is a group of 5 that's going to be pretty consistent, that you know what you're going to expect and they know what to do and how to do it. So that's the fun part about putting pads on.
That's all we're looking for is a group of 5. They can be able to get out there and be consistent and block the other guy and so on and so forth. That was Brian Callahan earlier this week. So tomorrow the Titans do have a practice, but it is not open to the media. But the one thing that Bill Callahan said earlier this week and Brian Callahan said earlier this week and Will Levis said even yesterday when I asked him about the right side of the offensive line is that they hope to get Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
They hope to get PT back tomorrow. Now, we won't know until Saturday if PT is actually back. I guess technically we would, because in order for him to practice, the Titans would have to officially activate him off the PUP list. So if he gets activated tomorrow, that means he's back in there. Bill Callahan said we're hoping for Friday. Brian Callahan said we're hoping for Friday. Will Levis said we're hoping to get Nick back soon. So I know I've been complaining about PT for a long time. When PT started as a rookie, which was a move I was technically in favor of because ratings was terrible, I was very disappointed that the Titans did not tender then restricted free agent David Quessenberry to a new contract, which would have been about $2 million, but instead drafted PT in the 3rd round. And I think they drafted PT in the 3rd round to be a project to ultimately be the guy to replace Taylor Lewan. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what I think. I think they drafted him. Raines is supposed to play right tackle in a perfect world, and then they would develop PT to take over for Lewan. That didn't happen. Raines wasn't very good. PT started as a rookie. Tons of mistakes. He wasn't very good. But the one thing that I felt was in today's NFL, it's so hard to really get physical practices with the offensive line, with the lack of padded practices, no 2-a-days, 3 preseason games instead of 4, that maybe it takes a guy a year before he's ready to be a legitimate NFL player. But if we were just going off of his 2022 season, Nicholas Petit-Frere wasn't very good. Now, Joe has changed his tune from he was pretty good as a rookie to he had some games where he was good, but the reality was he wasn't very good. Radens at the end of last year was better than anything PT was as a rookie. Then PT gets the gambling suspension, which, let me remind you, is a bad thing, not a good thing. Then he comes back, and he was horrible in the 3 games that he returned, and his shoulder ended up getting torn basically out of its socket because TJ Watt, who is good, flies off the edge, and he's trying to keep up with him, and out goes his shoulder. Then the new coaching staff, for whatever reason, whether it's a lack of resources, can't fix everything in one offseason, Jared, whatever it may be, does not at all investigate the opportunity of improving at both tackle spots. They just draft one and they move on. So because of that, PT for the 3rd year in a row is basically gifted a position. But now he's got a knee injury and he's still out. It's supposed to be a couple of days. Now it's a week. They are hoping to get him back tomorrow. Here's the deal. In reality, they need to be right about this, and they need me to be wrong because they need him to be their right tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere, I don't think is a very good player, and I think that unfortunately for him, it's in the middle that's the problem. i.e., the heart, the head, that kind of thing. But he has first-round measurables. Gentry Estes covered college football. I believe he was covering Alabama or Georgia at the time. And he said that when he was covering Alabama and Georgia, and Nicholas Petit-Frere was coming out of high school, he was the #1 offensive line recruit in the country, and he picked Ohio State over Notre Dame and Alabama. If you are being recruited by Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Alabama, chances are physically you are very, very gifted. He is. John Ojukwu from Boise State is 309 pounds. He is not physically gifted enough to be a starting right tackle in the NFL. I even read PT's draft report from Pro Football Talk, and I think this is exactly the problem with putting him on your line. Quote, and again, this is before he played an NFL snap. Petit Frere looked like a first rounder against the bottom feeders on his schedule and undraftable against top talents. 14 of his 26 allowed pressures came against Penn State with Arnold Abidike and Michigan with Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo in 2021. What that means is he has the physical tools. He is God-given to be a starting tackle in the NFL. But he's never actually been good at being tackle in the NFL, which means we all have to hope one thing, and that is that Bill Callahan can get the best out of him. There are some guys, no matter how hard they try, no matter how coachable they are, that just don't have the talent. That's why I've said, if wanting to be good at quarterback was all it took to be good at quarterback, will Levis be good at quarterback? If you're a landscaper, for instance, and you want to be a great landscaper, there's nothing stopping you. If you're a quarterback, you want to be great at quarterback, you may just not have the talent. In the case of most of the guys that are trying out for the right tackle spot on the Titans, they don't have the talent to be able to start in the NFL. PT does. But we've been waiting for 3 years. And if you even go back to that last year at Ohio State, they were waiting for PT to turn the corner. And I mean, you can wish and hope and pray and everything else, but normally, when you wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for a guy to get better, most of the time they don't. But if Bill Callahan is as good of a coach, maybe he can take kind of the raw talent or God-given measurables of PT and turn it into a legitimate right tackle. But I'll tell you how Bill Callahan can't do that. He can't do it if the guy doesn't get on the field. So at this point, they're kind of out of options. If it's not PT, it's going to be Jaron Christian. If it's not Jaron Christian, it's going to be John Ojukwu. If it's not John Ojukwu, it's going to be Jalen Duncan. If it's not Jalen Duncan, it's going to be Dylan Radens. And the term that the GM used to use for that was swap and spit. So the only guy who has the talent to be a starting right tackle on this team is PT. But again, for the second year in a row, we're waiting, and he's just not available. 615-737-1025 if you want to get in on the program. 615-737-1025. Michael in Madison says, is it weird the NFL hasn't officially announced the suspension for Arden Key? What is the holdup? I have no idea what the NFL's philosophy is. I have no idea what the NFL's plan is, the schedule is. I have no idea. And honestly, I don't care. If Paul's reporting that it's a 6-game suspension and Paul asks the head coach about the 6-game suspension and the head coach acknowledges the 6-game suspension, the 6-game suspension is real. So I wouldn't have much of an issue with that. One texter said, if practice is not open to the media, could somebody fly a drone over St. Thomas Sports Park and be able to gather intel? My guess is, and I don't know this for a fact, if you flew a drone over the practice facility, they'd shoot it down. If I had to guess.
Who? The Titans?
Yeah.
With what?
I mean, you don't think they have guns on the...
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I never really thought about that. Is
You
it like a
don't think
no-fly
an NFL
zone?
team has a gun in its facility.
Well,
and people capable of shooting it.
I'm sure they have some security somewhere.
I mean, they have tons of security. It's an NFL team.
I mean, I don't know. Are you allowed to shoot within city limits like that?
Sure. I think. I don't know. Private property. I'm telling you, I think they'd shoot it down. Plus, it's not like the Titans. The Titans have a direct line the Titans have a direct line to the Metro government. Somebody's flying a drone over it. They can probably get the green light. Yeah, go ahead, shoot it down. I don't know. Maybe they go in the bubble if they see a drone flying over it. I mean, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a drone that's flown over the stadium. Truthfully, I don't like when drones get flown over the stadium or anything. I don't like that. Like when I'm in a stadium and it gets flown over, because like what if the drone loses power, or what if I don't want it to fall all over me? And die and get cut by it. And I don't want any of that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joey from Bellevue says, Jonathan Hutton echoed your right tackle concern yesterday on the midday show. Ian, did you hear that?
I did not, no.
I didn't hear Hutton say it either. Here's what I'm going to laugh my ass off if right tackle's a problem this year. And I'll say this. I like Brian Callahan. I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about, Brian Callahan and, the start so far, and I like him. And I don't know how he feels about me. He may not have an opinion. He may like me. He may not like. I have no idea. That's his business, not mine. But if they go into this season and right tackle is as much of a disaster as I begged and begged and begged them not to do, you get no sympathy from me. I mean, you get zero sympathy. Corey Curtis says that stadiums are no-fly zones.
The stadiums are. I do know. I believe that is correct.
What about the practice field?
Practice field, I don't know. But the stadiums, I think they are pretty hardcore no-fly zones, yeah.
Somebody says it is illegal to shoot a gun in the air within city limits. Again,
I believe that is correct, too,
But the Titans, if there's a drone over the facility, the Titans have the direct line to the government. Like, the Titans could get through, say, hey, there's a drone. Can we shoot it down?
They could probably reach out to law enforcement, sure.
Right. This ain't like me and you and calling some 865, or what is it, 862 is the phone number that starts with all the non-emergency numbers or whatever. It's not like me and you.
Someone flying in our neighborhood.
Yeah, it's not like me and you doing that. Andrew says NFL stadiums use technology to block drone signals. Crazy. Interesting. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025, TD at 3 o'clock. And again, his thoughts on camp, his thoughts on what we've seen so far. Coming up next, I think we have an update on Bally Sports, especially as far as the Predators this season are concerned. And I think we're screwed. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's tell the fine folks that you can win tickets. That's right. You can win tickets with the Game Summer Ticket Tour presented by Green River Whiskey, and they've got 2 more stops left. Join Big Joe Dubin at Burrow Bourbon and Brews at 124 North Maple Street in Murfreesboro tomorrow from 4 to 6. He will have your chance to win free tickets to an upcoming concert in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Also, get signed up to win the grand prize, tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol by volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. the local TV here is Bally Sports that carries the Predators. I mean, I'm a cord cutter, and I think there are a lot of people out there that
you're
are
the
cord
problem.
cutters. I am the problem. What do you see as the future here? We see Major League Baseball dealing with stuff, and next
so
season.
wait. I mean, there's going to be an evolution in terms of how long-term and even short-term fans locally get their team. Streaming digital platforms are going to be an option. There may be more national games, but the whole delivery of our content, particularly on the local basis, is going to evolve. Having said that, first and foremost, we want to make sure it's accessible to our fans. And the business model is obviously going to change depending on how we have to do that.
Ian, congratulations.
Yes, I already got my email saying my credit is now being removed from my Xfinity bill since they have their Bally back.
So would you rather be able to watch the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds, because I believe that's what you get with Bally Sports this time of year? Would you rather be able to do that, or would you rather have the $7?
Oh, definitely the $7.
Okay. So if you are an Xfinity customer today, you get the Braves back. Congratulations. I'm not an Xfinity customer, so I'm not sure that really matters. But we were looking at the end of July, because that's when the Bally Sports bankruptcy hearing was going to be held. Now, I guess they pushed it back again. But that's when the Bally Sports bankruptcy hearing was to be had. And I was hoping and praying that Bally Sports would be sent down the toilet forever, and we'd never have to worry about not being able to watch Predators on TV again. Well, we have an update. And the update is, I think we're screwed. So according to Sports Media Watch, Bally Sports is expected to drop a handful of NBA teams, including the Grizzlies. In fact, I have the list in front of me here. It is the Pelicans, Thunder, Grizzlies, Mavericks, and Pistons. So Bally Sports, in trying to save their ass, agreed to break up with those 5 teams, so those 5 teams are free to do whatever they want to do. So we may be getting the Grizzlies like over the air for free. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I don't care about the Grizzlies, so that's not really an issue for me, but we'll just, again, keep an eye on that. So then I thought, okay, well, if the Grizzlies are getting dumped, doesn't that mean the Predators might get dumped too? Yes. But it is my understanding that the Predators are not likely to be cut loose by Bally Sports like the Grizzlies. In fact, I think all the NHL teams are staying because their CEO, David Preschlack, released a statement after they made the agreement with Comcast that will force you to pay $20 extra per month to be able to watch the Braves and the Predators. They said, quote, entering a new carrier agreement with Comcast, our third largest distributor, is a critical step forward in our restructuring effort, and we are pleased that fans will again be able to access broadcasts of their local teams through Xfinity. With certainty on our distribution, we are focused on finalizing an agreement with the NHL and resolving our ongoing negotiations with the NBA. Oh, no. We'll get to that in a second. He says, we are mindful that time is of the essence with basketball and hockey seasons fast approaching, and once agreements with our team and league partners are complete, we intend to move expeditiously to present a plan of reorganization to the court. What it sounds like when he says we are finalizing an agreement with the NHL and resolving the negotiations with basketball, what he's saying is, as part of the deal for basketball, what they're going to do is they're cutting those teams loose. The Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Thunder, the whoever's. So those teams get their rights back, and they don't have to plop down the cash for it. And we're finalizing a deal with the NHL, meaning the NHL's probably staying on Bally Sports. And I thought we were so close to regional sports network freedom around here. So here's what it means. If you have DirecTV, you get the Predators. If you have the streamer Fubo TV, you get the Predators. But you do not get the TNT games. So that's half the playoffs. And that is, how many TNT games do the Predators play per year, Ian? 3, 4?
Sounds about right.
So you're going to get all the Bally games, but you're not going to get the TNT games, which to me, I mean, if I'm Fubo TV, I'm getting Bally or I'm getting TNT because if my thing is, hey, we've got the regional sports networks, well, I want the national sports networks too. So there's no TNT on there if you have Fubo. If you have Xfinity, you now get the Predators again, but you have to pay $20 extra per month. Now, Ian apparently already pays the $20 extra per month, but if you had to pay another $20, Ian, would you to get the Predators?
Per month?
Yes.
It'd be a tough ask.
If you have YouTube TV, Hulu Live, or Sling, or any of the others, you do not get the Predators on Bally Sports. But you can get the Bally Sports Plus app, and it streams for $19.99 a month, which is, again, that $20 that you'd have to pay Comcast. You could get it, download the app, so on and so forth. So I did the math earlier today because apparently there's a streaming service being launched called Venue TV. It's a coordinated effort between Fox, ESPN, and TNT and TBS in order to have like a sports-only streaming service. And it's going to be $42.99 a month is going to be kind of like the startup. You sign up, and when it launches, you get that for 12 months or whatever. And I did the math for what I'm paying on YouTube TV. I'm paying about $1,100 a year for cable. I'm not interested in changing my cable. Like, I'm not interested in paying $20 extra per month to get Bally Sports Plus. I'm not interested in switching to DirecTV. I'm not interested in switching to Xfinity. I'm not interested in any of that. I like how I have it now, and I don't want to change. And the problem with that is, for the NHL, if you sign a deal with Bally Sports to keep going on for however long they go on for, and Bally Sports is not going to be around for 5 years. But if you do that, then I think there are going to be a lot of people, and I don't want to be rude. This is going to sound rude, but there are going to be a lot of people that aren't going to pay the extra money to watch regular season games. If it was the playoffs, then I think there would be people that would say, okay, I'll pay the extra money to watch the regular season games. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people to do it. And I'm going to tell you this too, and this may show you just how lazy I truly am. I don't like the effort of having to exit out of an app and open another app, and then I can't just flip the channels, and I don't like that. I don't like that when I'm watching the Predators and they go to intermission and I want to watch something else, I got to exit that app, open the other app, and then go again and then log back in. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. Josh says, I wish Bally Sports would die. I am a Grizzlies fan, so I'm glad they got dropped. But who takes over? Sucks for the Preds, though. I'm guessing it'll be a local broadcaster. Now, will that local broadcast get to Nashville? I don't know. But that's what I think will probably happen. All right, TD is in the house for the TD Power Hour. His reaction to the first 2 days in pads and what we've seen so far in training camp. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is 3 o'clock on a Thursday, which means TD is in the house, Teron Davenport, for the TD Power Hour. TD, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing really well. Appreciate you. It's camp time, man, so how could I not be doing well?
Well, let me just say this. Tonight is the Hall of Fame game, which means that we made it.
Yes, sir. Hey, you know what? We never left. How about that?
That's true. That is true. Are you going to watch Hall of Fame game tonight? You going to watch the Olympics tonight?
I'm going to watch both. I also am finishing up my Kenneth Murray story, man. And I'm so excited about this guy playing. So this story that I'm doing, I'm going to be finishing that up while watching both of them. Yeah.
Okay. We look forward to that. Let's start with this. Let's start with kind of your thoughts on where the Titans are right now, your thoughts on practice so far as we are 2 days into pads, 2 weeks into practice. Let's start with the football stuff, and then later on in the hour, we'll get to the other non-football stuff. What have you seen so far? Your just general impressions.
Yeah, I think overall impression is this defense is exactly what Denard Wilson said. You know, the dog, the acronym, we won't get into that because I don't want us to get banned, but disciplined with grit. I think when you watch them play, it's very clear that they're on a mission. They're aggressive. Denard Wilson is sending them, and the corners are very physical. I think it's pretty fun to watch that. But then also you look at T'Vondre Sweat specifically. I know he's a guy that you had a lot of questions about, and rightfully so. And you're getting to see him start to work into shape. And I think
he has answered the bell so far.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just crazy because you're seeing firsthand how just him leaning on someone, just that alone makes it tough, right? So you got that. I think when you look at the defense, the one thing that I will say, they need to find someone who could just arise as the premier pass rusher that this defense is probably going to need, and that's a bit of a hiccup. Harold Landry, obviously, he's working his way back. He said he lost 10 to 15 pounds. We're not seeing the Harold Landry yet. So maybe it's him. Offensively, I think Will Levis, one thing that I'm seeing consistently is overshooting guys. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a timing thing or if it's like, hey, let me just like throttle down a little bit and level this excitement, knowing that what's at stake, I don't know, but you want to see a little more consistency in the passing game. He is definitely hitting those mid-range to short things, like the timing stuff is there. You see Nick Holtz going to that and Callahan going to that because of how this defense is attacking. So you got that. The running back, Hassan Haskins, nobody's talking about him, but I've seen him hit some holes and layer some moves. And, he's got to be in the consideration when you're talking about this third back. So you got that. Offensive line.
Let's hope PT gets back in there, TD.
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. That right side specifically has had some struggles, right? And I'm not just talking about the tackle and John Ojukwu. I'm talking about Sadiq Charles, Dylan Radens. They've had their struggles, and we'll see what happens. Cushenberry, though, is a bright spot. Now, Jeffrey Simmons got him with like a snatch and rip move, and he tackled Tajay Spears for a big loss. But there needs to be more out of that O-line. There needs to be more.
So when it comes to the offensive line and the right side specifically, whether it's Charles and Ojukwu, whether it's Radens and PT, whoever it ends up being, whether they swing a guy like Leroy Watson or Jaron Christian over there, I mean, I think the way Bill Callahan's made it sound is don't rule anything out at this point other than J.C. Latham and Peter Skoronski going over there. They're going to stay on the left side. There is a part of me, TD, that says Bill Callahan will get it figured out. And then there's a part of me that has remembered what the last 2 years have looked like, granted without Bill Callahan, but with subpar players on the offensive line. And I know Will Levis cannot thrive if the conditions are similar to the last 2 years. So how much of the Bill Callahan effect can Titan fans bank on to say, hey, this will get fixed because the master is at work?
Yeah, listen, it's not going to be the same as it was last year or the year before. And I'm going to tell you the one difference and the one thing, Jared, that you have to hang your hat on. And, maybe you should start telling the center story, right? Mm-hmm. Don't tell the right tackle stories. Tell the center story. And just I'll put it to you this way. I got a text 2 days ago from Omar Kelly, who is with the all SI, all Dolphins, Sports Illustrated. They're however they have their deal, right? And
He's been covering the Dolphins for a long time.
We're talking Miami Sun Sentinel and other outlets. He's a long timer, right? But I got a text and he said, "Hey man, did Aaron Brewer have trouble with snaps when he was up there?"
Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah. So listen, I'll say this, forget the right tackle story, tell the center story, because this is an issue. Now, of course, yesterday in practice, there was a bad snap, but that wasn't Cushenberry, that was Cole Spencer. But this is an issue that has been solved with this team. Just the Aaron Brewer, the Lloyd Cushenberry, I forget the PFF ratings and all that foolishness. It's an upgrade. And just that upgrade and not having that pocket collapse. And I'm going to tell you a big example of that. Watching yesterday during the pass rushing part of it, where it's O-line, D-line, right? Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, they both tried to bull rush on Cushenberry. And he just said, you know what, I'm going to drop this anchor and I'm going to settle in, and you're not going anywhere. And that is what's going to help Levis. And that is why you shouldn't be as concerned about it. You should still be concerned, but not as concerned about that O-line, just simply because of Cushenberry.
Teeny, what do you make of the Treylon Burks hype? Because, I mean, look, the Treylon Burks I'm seeing on the field is the same Treylon Burks that I almost shed tears over getting hurt in Minnesota last year. And yet we've seen Burks look like a superstar in practice at times, and we have yet to see that consistently in NFL games.
Yeah, well, look, man, like you mentioned, he got hurt, last year, because this is what we saw to a degree last year. But I tell you now, and I joked with him yesterday because he was coming off the field. I said, "Oh, you don't walk off the field with no shirt on now, huh? You put that work in, didn't you?" And he laughed and he was like, "Yeah, man, I feel good." But in talking to him, we talked about, because I got 4 girls and a granddaughter, so I'm girl dad times 5. You know what I mean? So he has his daughter coming, and we talked a little bit about that and just like how excited he is just overall about everything. And sometimes having a child, like, it changes your outlook and your purpose and everything like that. And maybe that's the case with him. The hype is interesting. I saw somebody posted a video of a route that he ran, and Dez Bryant broke it down, and he was like, "Man, that's a really good win by Treylon Burks." And he went into the details and stuff, and it was pretty cool to see Dez Bryant, detailing something that Burks did. And I think the hype is good. He's going to get his opportunities. You got to remember, it's going to be a rotation. DeAndre Hopkins runs a deep route, he's going to come out. Calvin Ridley runs a deep route, he's going to come out, and Burks fortunately could play all 3. So let's say Boyd, he just needs a breather. Boom, Burks goes in, and now you have opportunities for him to make plays.
Well, the other thing, too, is, I mean, we would love for everybody to be healthy all the time, but the likelihood that every receiver is going to make it 17 games for this team is not very high. The other thing that I have been keeping my eye on, I know you and I've talked about this on the practice field, but that is the battle at tight end 1. I think this is a real battle between Wiley and Chig, and they each kind of offer something different. Wiley's got that big frame. Chig is more athletic, probably smoother than Wiley is. We know that, Wiley had his health issue last year. Chig had his catch issue at the beginning of last year. But what do you make of the battle between the two? Because I feel like every time, Wiley makes a catch, then Chig comes back 3 plays later and he makes a catch.
Yeah. Did you see that catch, that seam catch that Chig had?
Yeah, the one where he fell on his back.
That throw by Levis, good Lord.
Yeah.
that was a missile, but Chig caught that thing, and a great throw there, that particular play. But that's an example of what you could get out of Okonkwo. You look at Wiley, you notice how they used him. They're using that speed on the outside, not speed, but size on the outside. The Kenneth Murray issue, right? And let me say this. You know how I smile when I mentioned David Long? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that same smile comes when I mention Kenneth Murray. But I tell you what, Josh Wiley took his pants off at the line of scrimmage. Like, he stripped him down with that release move, and he got open quickly. And, he made the catch, and he let Murray know about it, right? And they had the back and forth. But I point to that as an example of what Wiley brings to the table. Even though he's so big and lengthy, you could put him on the outside, and you could actually win with him, against linebackers. So it's a pretty good experience just to see both of those guys working back and forth. And I tell you this, right? yesterday, Chig Okonkwo, basically most of everybody cleared off the field. Chig walked after signing autographs, walked to the other side to the jugs machine, and he was still on those jugs when we walked off the field after all the press conferences and stuff.
And I think I saw Paul put out there that at the practice on Saturday, the open practice, that Chig was the last person off the field signing autographs like an hour after it was over.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? Last year, because we talked about this, the drops that he had, and the confidence that he started to build. And last year, that's what you saw every day. Vrabel would be speaking, and you hear because it's him catching off the jugs machine. You know what I mean? And then he would put in that extra work. So it's just continuing.
The other thought I do wonder is at corner right now. Awuzie's out. Snead is being managed. And boy, let me tell you something. That Snead, he does what I wish every DB that played on my team would do.
What's that?
He holds on every play. And they're not going to
throw a flag. He told you that when he spoke.
They're not going to throw. The Legion of Boom dominated by holding on every play because they know you're going to call it twice a game and they're not going to have a 5-hour football game. They're not going to call it every play.
And there's wise ways to hold it. Tay Gowan, he and I, number 30, the corner, he and I were going over that yesterday also. There's just wise ways where you could tuck your hold, like you hold on the inside part right by the shoulder pads, and you hold that, and it's a lot of times hard to see.
By the way, Derek drew a flag for Traylon Burks yesterday or 2 days ago against Snead because the refs, we're standing right there on the sideline and the refs were there and Derek yelled out, "Hands in the face." And all of a sudden you see the judge throw out the yellow flag.
Hey, that's the savvy veteran that he is.
I was sitting there saying to myself, I'm like, man, he's like coaching from the sidelines, working the refs for a flag. But what have you seen after those two between Brownlee, Avery, and Judy Lally? And if there's anybody else I'm missing that would be in that kind of 4 through 6 or 7 mix, knowing that, as we've always said, you never have enough corners.
Yeah, there's a glaring one that you're missing. Caleb Farley. He opened
I actually
one-on-ones.
was impressed with Farley.
Yeah, he opened one-on-ones 2 days ago. Very, very good defense against DeAndre Hopkins, right? And then he had a couple nice plays yesterday. Now, he did give up a catch. You're going to have that, but he's someone that is slowly sneaking his way back into shape as far as like football, being able to go out there and ball out. That's going to be one to watch. But you mentioned Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Remember I came back from the Senior Bowl? I said, man, there's this corner, and I tell you what, if I played against him in practice, like, we'll fight every day. And I told him that. That's him. He's so feisty. You saw the clip against Tyler Boyd where, he fought all the way through the tuck. He's out there like raw dog, no swag on, like no gloves, no sleeves, no wristbands, nothing. Just some fluorescent green cleats and a jersey and helmet with pads and pants. And that's it. And he's just always in phase. So you got him, Gabe Judy Lally. This is perfect for him because he's a guy with long arms. He loves to get his hand in there. And you saw him make some plays. He got beat also, and again, it's going to happen. But those guys right there, and McCreary is just the ongoing steady presence of a defensive player too.
I didn't even put McCreary on it because he's just getting better, steady. You
know what you got in him.
Okay. The Jeffrey Simmons saga.
Do we have to do a whole segment on it?
We'll do half a segment on it.
All right.
Half a segment on it with TD, his thoughts on it. 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones for TD at the end of the hour, as we always do for the TD Power Hour. Let's talk Window Nation. That's right. It's Window Nation's anniversary sale this month in August. Happy anniversary, Window Nation. Look, there are tons of companies that are out there that will replace your windows for you. Trust me, I've got a mailbox. I open the mailbox. I see all the ads in there, the flyers, the get this special deal, whatever. The one I trust is Window Nation. Head and shoulders above everybody else for me. I trust them. I had them at my home, and I would not hesitate to pick up the phone and call Window Nation if I needed to replace my windows. Plus, right now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free. Plus, pay nothing for 24 months and get an extra $250 credit. Hurry up because the sale ends August 31st. Again, 2 windows, get 2 free. Pretty easy, right? Pay nothing for 24 months and the extra $250 credit. Schedule an in-home estimate by calling 866-90Nation or visiting windownation.com. That's windownation.com.
Well, before y'all get started, we all know what happened yesterday. A lot of y'all been here since I've been here, so y'all know me. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be seen as. I talked to Buck. We have an understanding. I have an understanding where we're coming from. I have an understanding where he's coming from. He have a job. I have a job. At the end of the day, I take full accountability of my actions on the field. I mean, that'll never happen again with me. Like I said, I always talk about that switch, when to turn it on, when to turn it off. I was kind of still had it on coming off the field, of course, with the way practice went. But that, like I said, that's not me. It'll never happen again. And to all you guys, like I said, I apologize. And not because it's hit social media, but it's because who I am. That's not my character. And I think from here on out, like I said, from that point, like I said, I spoke on about it. I'm ready to move forward. Any football questions, I'm here to answer.
Yesterday with the apology heard around the city. Unfortunately, the video of him and Buck was probably heard around the world. And as is the case most of the time, somebody does something and everybody sees it. And then the apology, not as many people probably see it. Though, TD, I did see the apology. Both the video and a story was up at ESPN.com. So at least the people going there would have seen that. Kenny, what was your reaction to everything that went down with Simmons and everything?
I guess you could say yikes. I was sitting there and I saw Simmons come out and say where's, and I didn't know who he said. And so I turned around because I'm like, dang, my man Paul, his agent came and didn't even tell me. So I'm turning looking for Paul. I didn't see Paul De Rousseau, and I just minding my business. Then next thing I know, they're like, man, did you hear what happened? And so, yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, obviously.
So I look at it like this might be, I don't want to say like a learning experience for Simmons, but
I think it's for both.
My thing is I felt like the thing I kept telling people when Simmons started the practice, and I felt like he was kind of looking for a fight on Tuesday. Like first drill of team period, I mean, he was barking. And I know that that's kind of his MO, is that he's a trash talker. But, I mean, he was barking. And then he goes after Latham on the first one. And then he went after Mason Kinsey on the second one. And I kind of felt like, you know, it felt to me like with Tannehill and Henry and Byard and Autry and all those guys kind of graduated, like he was like, I'm the senior now on the team and I want everybody to know it. And I think this was kind of a moment where it was like, hey, easy. Like it'll come, just you can't force it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. And he made a good point when he talked about turning the switch off. You have to be able to turn the switch off, right? And, you know, the thing that he has to learn is, hey, man, don't get concerned. And he knows this. Jeffrey Simmons knows this. The opinions that matter are the ones within that building. Those are the guys who will elect him as a team captain. Those are the guys and the coaches who will say, you know, who will point to him when it's time to, you know, show hustle on the football field. Those are the guys who will, you know, vouch for him, top 100 players and all that good. That's what you concern yourself with. But
don't worry about me.
Exactly. Most importantly, just go out there and let what you do on the football field speak for everything. That's it. Okay, you say you know, I need to make more plays, which I've said, you know, I've told him, like, hey, man, like you got to make more impact plays. You know, don't worry about what I'm saying. Go do it. That's it. You know, and at the same time, he is a human being, right? Mm-hmm. And I know I know that if I constantly see stuff or someone tells me, hey, Jeff, you believe so-and-so, he said, it's going to begin to wear on you. But as someone who's held to a higher standard, you have to figure out ways to not release it by, you know, having those types of actions. So, yeah, it's definitely a learning experience for Simmons, and he has to, you know, not concern himself with social media, has to not concern himself with it.
The one thing that I would say that Simmons said yesterday that I did agree with, but I feel like he hasn't really taken advantage of is because he said, you know, hey, as players, we understand like the media is going to critique us, but we also should be able to kind of push back on that a little bit. And I don't disagree with that at all. But when there's the opportunity to do it, he should take it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
if you've got, you know, say it. If you think that somebody's not being respected, say it. Now, there may be people that disagree with that opinion the same way people disagree with my opinions, but I just like, and I think Simmons in both cases just doesn't want to say anything in that moment. And then I think it kind of gets pinned up a little bit.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It's wise. Like, what did a lot of people's mothers tell them? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Sure.
I think if he would have spoke at that moment, like if he sat down and moved Roger McCreary out the chair and sat down and talked to Buck at that moment, he would have said some things that he certainly would have wanted to walk back. So yeah, I mean, obviously you would like for him to do that, you know, hey. But at the same time, it's smart for him not to. But conversely, and this is where sometimes there's an issue, just as far as culturing and just maybe not being on the same page. I will tell you, in certain cultures, to call another man soft, like you don't do that unless you expect a confrontation.
There's been a lot of discussion around the I want to say the Stillman household, but inside the Jared Stillman bubble about soft versus the word that Simmons used to describe Buck on the live stream.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that, but
No,
then it
but
can be interpreted
exactly,
as that.
exactly. If all your life that word was associated with negativity and being less than a man, you're going to react that way, right? Like your brain's
sure.
going to go there first. You may not react that way, but that thought's going to like, who do you think he is calling me soft? Like what? You know,
No,
and
I
that's going to
understand
be,
that.
and so you have to be careful. And that's where the lines kind of get blurred. Like it's okay to critique. It's okay. And Jared, we've talked about this.
Sure.
You know, but when it starts to become where even if it's not personal, when it starts to become perceived as personal, then that's where the lines are crossed. Because like I'll tell you, like I'll critique somebody. Like I just told you about Simmons, how he needs to make more plays. You know, we've talked about Jamal Adams. Even to Jamal, like, hey, listen, it's documented that you have coverage issues. How do you react to that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Even with L'Jarius Sneed, hey, look, man, like it's documented that you led the league in holding. How do you know what I mean? Like you could have that interaction, but I think it needs to be respectful. That's all.
So it's funny because there has been, like, we've had a bunch of conversations about soft. And to your point, like when I say soft, I'm talking about like you're so, like, get some thicker skin. Like,
yeah, no, I get it.
No,
yeah.
and I know you get it. But when I said it, I didn't even think about the other side of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where, again, when Simmons is like, hey, we feel like we should be allowed to push back. Push back.
Yeah. It's just sometimes it's like, why even do it though? Because like if they push back, then it's like, oh, well, what are you worried about him for? You know what I mean? It's just like,
Sure.
you can't win. You know, and I think really the best case is DeAndre Hopkins sets the best example. You know, like he'll just a couple words, retweet it with a couple words, and it's done. You know what I mean? And you never see him out of character. Like this dude, like is he capable of getting upset? I don't know. Because I know in the year that we've seen, like, and in some situations where you would think he would be, like, you never see an overreaction from him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now back to the football stuff, TD. Arden Key reportedly a 6-game suspension. Where do they go from here? Or have they already gone where they are looking to go in reaction to that? We'll do that coming up next here on the program. First, I'm going to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. That's right. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. I do not even think twice. If something's wrong, it's like phone out, happyhiller.com, and I bring them out. Summer is over, and it's time to get ready for school to start. Even though the kids are headed back to school, you can leave homework to Hiller. This month, enjoy back-to-school savings with offers like a $99 drain cleaning, $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems, $500 off new tankless water heaters, and $1,000 off whole home generators. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
You have the resources at Edge to manage with Arden heading for 6 games out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the news. It's a league thing. I don't really have much to comment on until that comes out from the league. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's not something that you wanted to hear, but we don't really have a choice. We got to go play football with who we have, and if we can find someone else, we will. And if we can't, then we got to play with what we have. So that's sort of where we're at.
That was Brian Callahan after Paul asked him about the Arden Key suspension, which Paul broke. TD, it should be noted that the NFL has not officially suspended Arden Key yet. I don't know if you have any insight into that or not.
Yeah, I saw that it hasn't been official. There may be some things that they're reviewing. Like, I don't know. I haven't gotten any particular insight on that, but it's interesting that they haven't done so yet.
Well, I am, because I have been waiting for the Arden Key, and not to say that Arden Key would be lying or not. It's just every time a guy tests positive, a guy always has an excuse. And I'm sure a couple times over the years they've been valid, and I'm sure 95% of the time it's Ryan Braun bullcrapping everybody. So I'm waiting. Like, Danico Autry came out with his saying that the pharmacy screwed up, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready to see Danico Autry v. Kroger, like, hey, that's real money Danico's going to lose for being suspended for 6 games. So let's see it.
Oh yeah, he said that's what they're doing. They're taking action against whoever it may be.
Let's go. Then they might take the text messages, and then we can see about the talks with the Titans and see where they got or what they didn't. But the real question is, let's just assume that they're going to suspend Arden Key for 6 games. And then the question is, where do they go from here? And my initial just thought on it, TD, is Shane Ray, is that the answer ahead of time, or is there another answer behind door number 2?
Yeah, I think it was a combo of the two. I think Shane Ray is, a depth signing, one that they had to add depth to that position anyway. But, Saturday at practice, I'm going to see ran out, and I'm going to tell him to put his hand out, and I'm going to smack his hand for not signing Marcus Golden.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Golden is returning to the Steelers. He came in and he was really productive for them. It was TJ Watt that went down last year. He was really productive for them. I don't know why they didn't go that route, but they're going to have to bring in somebody. Caleb Murphy, Rashad Weaver, Thomas Rush, and Jalen Harrell has had a solid camp. These are all guys that can be expected to step up, but I think they're going to need additional help.
Okay, so on top of that, I do wonder, do you make a move for 6 games, or do you try to ride it out like they would try to ride out an injury?
I don't know, man. That's a tough call. That's a tough call, because even after the 6 games, I remember Lane Johnson got suspended, and he came back and he wasn't the same. You know what I mean? So it's still, I would look at something more long term.
Trevor thinks that Petit Frere got hurt last year because he was just kind of put back out there, and then now he's going after TJ Watt, and TJ Watt, basically rips his shoulder off of him.
Yeah, I mean, that very much could have been the case. That's a great observation.
I look at the Arden Key thing and I'm like, okay, he had 6 sacks last year and over 17 games. So over 6 games, that's 2 sacks. They can replace 2 sacks without going out and signing Carl Lawson, right?
Yes. But, you got to go beyond the sacks. Look at the pressures, look at the tackles for loss, or even look at the times where just getting in there, it doesn't list in the stat sheet, but he got in there or he set the edge and watched the run back inside, and Simmons or somebody made the tackle. You got to look at all of that. It's going to be tough to replace Arden Key, but and Danico Autry together. But other guys, as I believe you were going to allude to, have to elevate their game collectively.
Where are you on Shane Ray? Because I would not say, from watching him just a little bit in practice, I would not look at that guy and say, he has not played football since the Reagan administration, but he has not actually played a snap of real football since 2018.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I wouldn't necessarily put full stock in, hey, he's the answer. I think, again, it's going to be collectively. That's where 2 guys I'm going to mention that you're not even thinking about: Kenneth Murray and Jamal Adams. those are guys who you're going to have to look to help you in the pass rushing game. And I don't know if you've seen it, but when that number 56 triggers, he goes and he gets there. You know what I mean? So you got that, and we know Jamal Adams is not the same player as he was when he had 9.5 sacks, but he still has some of that ability, and he could be used. And I think you've seen some of the things to allude to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I actually put in, when the Arden Key suspension happened, I put in, okay, who has to step up because of the Key suspension? And the first guy I mentioned was Shane Ray, because I think he's going to be the first guy that gets a crack at it. Maybe
Rashad Weaver instantly becomes, look at practice. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Weaver is the guy he's next man up.
I did put Adams in there, though, saying, he's the one guy here that's got some history of getting to the quarterback. And what I think, in a perfect world, if people are healthy, what it would allow them to do is to move Adams down and maybe put another defensive back, whether it's Molden or Brownlee or one of these other guys on the field, instead of a bigger body, thinking that Adams can get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. And here's the thing that's really, really cool about that is Kenneth Murray, is probably going to be the guy. He's calling the defense now, right? So now you don't have to worry about, okay, well, we got to take Kenneth Murray off the field, leave Gibbons in, and then you could take Gibbons off and put Jamal Adams in, and now you have a big, aggressive, fast, physical group of guys.
TD, what do you think they're going to end up doing as far as the Arden Key replacement? You think that there's money available for them to make a move here?
Yeah, there's absolutely money available for them to make a move. It's just, what move do you make? The Carl Lawson one is that's the biggest, upside one. But I mean, do you do it? I would consider it, but I don't know what they're going to do, honestly. I think they're really banking on Rashad Weaver and some of the, the guys already there to step up.
So I really thought that when I asked Rand on the opening Tuesday of training camp about, hey, are you guys done with Jamal Adams at safety? And he was like, well, we're interested at every position. I was like, okay, that sounds like the coach talk that says yeah, we're looking at every position, but hey, we're going with Adams. And then when Adams talked, he was like, yeah, I talk to Quadre Diggs every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love him to be on this team, but I'm not going to pressure him. And I'm like, well, that makes it sound like Quadre Diggs might be still in the mix around here.
It ain't over.
Would this Arden Key news, and I don't exactly know how the money works. Do the Titans get the 6 games worth of Arden Key money back or not? I don't know.
Good question.
But would that be, to your point about Adams, a reason to invest in Diggs, saying, hey, we're really going to rely on Adams to kind of move down more, kind of play more of that center fielder in the middle of the defense, allow Kenneth Murray to try to get to the quarterback more, and thus, when all this is over and we get Arden Key back, we can put Quadre Diggs in the lineup and he's still in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, your center fielder, your Eric Davis is Amani Hooker. That's the guy you're going to have playing center field. But, I mean, look, the Diggs thing is something that has been on the burner for quite some time. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens soon. I'll say it that way. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it happens soon. So, and that's something that, regardless of the Arden Key status, money-wise and everything, that's something that I wouldn't be surprised if it happens soon.
The thing that hit me about the Key suspension was, to your point, talking about the quarterback hits and pressures and everything else, we know he's a starter. And I was sitting there thinking about how big of a loss this is, and I heard D. May say, he was like, look, they're going to feel this. And I was like, you know what? That's true.
Yeah.
This isn't a hoping that this guy can play for you. This isn't it was a guy they were depending on. And if he's out for 6 games, it's really going to have to be them kind of paper clipping it together for those 6 games, whether they add it, unless they go get a Carl Lawson or something like that. It's going to be kind of Simmons is going to have to get more sacks. And to your point, Adams, and it's going to be more than just one guy that's chipping into the pass.
And it's beyond just that stuff, right? You go to practice, you've seen, where does a lot of that energy come from? And
He's what was it Rand said? Instant juice.
Instant juice. Yeah. And you always hear him from the moment he steps foot off of the darn porch. You hear him. You know what I mean? That's Arden Key.
TD is with us. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, TD answers your questions. So get them all in. 615-737-1025. It is the TD Power Hour on Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. It is a Thursday, which means it is the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport with us. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the phones?
Yes, a quick thought. I got a text message and it really hit the nail on the head. We talk a lot about Jeffrey Simmons and you know the things that happened on Tuesday. But one thing that I do think we absolutely need to note, he addressed it with Buck, but then I don't know if you noticed, but he was really dominant during practice, like multiple tackles for a loss, a couple would-be sacks. I think he responded pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he should be dominating in practice because he's by far the best player on the team.
Yeah.
And that is, and I will say this, I do think that as far as the football is concerned, I do think that this might be pretty good. Like as far as challenging, I do think there may be something to that.
Yeah, it's
like,
beautiful.
Phone line shared by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Text says, TD, how many running backs do you think end up on the roster? I haven't heard that much about the position group, any standouts, and is there any chance Jabari Small makes the team?
Hey, listen, man, they were working the strike zone yesterday, and Jabari Small got good blocking on that right side. He turned the corner, and he said, you know what? I got 2 words. I'm gone. And he outran the defense for, what would have been like a 30-yard touchdown. So that was good to see him there. He's also involved, in the kick return game. So, yeah, I mean, he's a name to mention. Again, I mentioned Hassan Haskins. Julius Chestnut is still in the mix, and he's a much more slimmed down version of himself. I think they could conceivably keep 4 running backs. I do see it as a possibility. Right now, in my opinion, it's kind of Haskins, Chestnut for the 3rd, and Small. The problem with Small is he's very similar to what they have already. Whereas Haskins and Chestnut give him a little bit more of that, a little more of that thumper, that powerful back.
Let's go to Mark in Gallatin, who is up next here. Mark, you're on with TD. Mike, excuse me. Mike, go ahead.
No worries. 2 quick questions. One, out of the undrafted free agent guys, who are you most excited about with progress so far? And then secondly, is there any veteran player that should be concerned about his roster spot?
Yeah, no, 2 good questions, Mike. I appreciate you. And look, man, you talk UDFAs, man, Gabe Judy. He's the guy. I think you look at him and how he landed in this scheme that matches what he's able to do, finally getting his opportunity to, have those talks with wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, those physical talks with them. That's a good thing for him. Veteran that should be concerned, Kyle Phillips. I think Kyle Phillips is the guy that should be concerned. And Jared, Kyle Phillips, the little Sonic the Hedgehog, is a guy I really like, but that wide receiver group is stacked, and they used a day 3 pick on Jaquan Jackson, and we know that he's someone that they like, so it could be tough sledding for Kyle Phillips.
Let's go to James in Ashland City, who's up next here. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. James, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. TD, it's always good to hear your voice, man. Love
Appreciate
your input. I just want to, this time last year, Jared was talking a lot about the quarterback position and how soon Levis would take over for Tannehill and his progress, and how long it would take the Titans to bring him along. And from what you've seen in practice, now granted it's early during training camp, but how much good Will Levis have you seen as opposed to how much bozo Will Levis have you seen in practice, to quote Jared, and I'll hang up and listen.
I haven't really seen any bozo Will Levis. I've seen some, how'd you miss that throw? There are 2 that come to mind, but those were in OTAs and minicamp. No, the Tyler Boyd on the seam route. That one was one that's like, rifle that thing in there. But there are some throws, like I mentioned the Chig one earlier on that seam, in the strike zone. That's one. There's a couple. So put it to you like this: throwing that deep in-breaking route, Levis is mastering that. And he's not overthrowing that. But for whatever reason, there's stuff on the outside that's, kind of being overthrown. And I think with timing that'll come. I have gotten all the indications that Levis is a capable player that should have a really good season. But again, it's early and we still have to see more. The timing, though, is going to be something to work on. And and being a distributor, he has to make sure that he just throws to the open guy instead of getting caught up like, oh, I got to get Calvin involved. Oh, I got to get Hop the ball. Oh, I got to get Todd. Just go to the open guy.
So the one thing I would say about Levis is people ask you, Jared, how does Levis look? And I'm like, it's kind of complicated because, one, there is pressure and the pressure never finishes as it would in a game. But also, like he said yesterday, that there are balls that, like with Ridley, for instance, he's trying to, work through things that in a game, he's going to check it down.
Yeah.
And so he's thrown some hospital balls that haven't landed anybody in the hospital yet. But I think that's him testing what he can do, and that come Chicago, that's going to be checked down to Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard.
It's like a pitcher in spring training giving up a bunch of home runs because he's working on that split finger fastball, right? And he's just working on it just to see. And guys are knocking it out the park. So it's like, oh yeah, I know I can't go to that. And I think just the same, he's just working some of these things. That's why it's very important not to get too high or too low, right? And I know that a lot of guys they track completions and all this. I don't get into all that because it's not really a truly accurate prediction of what you'll see in the regular season.
Austin from Clarksville says, what players of note, players that are expected to make the 53, have not had a good camp?
I would say that right side of the offensive line. Sadiq Charles, I had expected a bit more from Dylan Radence. Jalen Duncan, Ojukwu, I'm not going to say I expected that from. But, I mean, look, the right side of the line, that's an area I go to immediately. Cedric Gray, honestly. But you have to understand that this is he's swimming upstream right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that I expected him to do more right now, but you talk about someone who's is going to make the roster but not playing to his potential right now. It's him. But like I was telling, I think Kayla I was talking to, and I told her, what you're going to see happen is he's going to go out there in the preseason, he's going to knock somebody's block off, and then all of a sudden everything's just going to fall into place because that's just the way this happens. Things just, you have that turning moment there and it starts to click.
Texter says, TD, what would you say about JC Latham so far?
I love how he gets after it. And Jared, here you go. I'll drop a little nugget for you. You know who he worked with in the offseason? He spent a whole week with him.
Trent Williams.
Yep. Spent the whole week with Trent Williams. And
I think you said that last week on the show.
Oh, did I? Okay.
I know that I knew that.
Oh no, you know what? I told you via text. I didn't say it on the air.
I knew that. I was like, I know that for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I think you might have said that last week.
Yeah, I didn't say it on the air. But yeah, so you have that. And then what I really like about him is just, look at the Simmons thing. Like, hey, I don't care who, I'm not backing down, brother. Like, no. Even though you're one of the top dudes, I'm not backing down. And then I just love the mindset, that he brings. You saw him a couple of times at the running plays, like, come on, let's go. Like, winding it up, wanting to keep going. I think he's going to be really good. And I'm saying that, like, even after watching him in pads, so it's all signs are pointing up for him.
I said this yesterday, that my takeaway on JC Latham, take Cushenberry out of it because Cushenberry is, to your point, like the starting pitcher getting ready for the season. He knows he's a starting center. He's, and basically plays a completely different position. Latham is by far the best offensive lineman on the team right now. And he, to me, looks like what a 7th overall tackle should look like.
Yeah.
As a rookie.
He looks good. But don't forget about 77.
See, I have not been as impressed with Peter as I have been with Latham. With Latham, especially when they do those pass rush drills with guys around the edge, and granted, Skoronski doesn't do those drills because he plays guard. But Latham, he's got that big frame, and yet he can sit those guys down and he can get out there, and he can. With Peter, Bill Callahan works these guys really hard,
especially hard.
But Peter is like a couple plays in, huffing and puffing, and once he gets past that initial wave of where he starts to get a little tired, I feel like he's kind of lunging a little bit at the guard position.
Good observation. I'm not seeing him there were a couple times where I saw him pick up some stunts, and I'm like, hey, that's how you do it, or pick up blitzes. But look, the bottom line is that left side is in good shape, but the right side is like, oh yeah, there's some things that have to happen.
Last one says, TD, please tell me, I know you're not talking great about the right side of the line. Please tell me we're not going to have to hear the right tackle story every week during the season.
Well, I tried, man. I tried to say, let's shift it to the center story.
That is true.
But it's way too early. But look, man, like, this isn't the first time a team has had an open competition for a starting spot. Let's remember, like, these things happen. Like, you have open competition, and the guy who everybody expects to win, right, wrong, or indifferent, is not in it. But he's supposed to come back today, so we'll have to wait. No, tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So we'll have to see, if he is available to them tomorrow, because that's what both the Callahans have said. So we'll see.
TD, always good to see you. Do we have a new Talking with TD this week?
Yeah, no, it's up, man. Chris Sanders and we talked the Jeffrey Simmons situation. I went into some detail on Kenneth Murray, talking to Frank Bush and Denard Wilson, and we got about 2 minutes of conversation with him, as well as 2 minutes with Tyler Boyd that I think you guys will enjoy.
TD, always good to see you. Take care. We'll see you out on the practice field.
All right, appreciate you.
Yep, TD for the TD Power Hour, as always, one of the most popular segments on the station every week. We appreciate it. Coming up next, Mike Vrabel held a press conference yesterday. I'm not sure he wanted to do it, but I'm thinking it's the NFL rules. And Mike Vrabel was asked if he was surprised about what happened here in Tennessee. What he had to say next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So Mike Vrabel yesterday was at the podium for the first time since becoming the, I don't even know what his title is, Ian, special assistant to the head coach.
Something like that.
Some for cock to something or another, I don't know. So for the first time, Vrabel was in front of the podium, and they mostly asked him Browns questions, which would make sense because he is now specially assisting the Browns. He will not have a role on game day, so he'll watch the games on TV. He was asked if he had ever eaten a dog bone before. His answer was, I don't think you could be cool in middle school in Northeast Ohio if you hadn't eaten a dog bone. But there was a question about what happened with his exit in Tennessee. And Mike Vrabel was asked if he was surprised by his Titans exit. Here's what the former head coach of the Titans had to say.
Oh, nothing surprises me. This is my 25th NFL training camp. So I would say that nothing surprises me in the National Football League. That's part of the job. I think it's, disappointing. I think you're disappointed, that you couldn't, do the job the way that they wanted it or they envisioned it. But again, this is the opportunity that I think is best for me right now to be able to go through, draft meetings, personnel meetings with Andrew and his staff and see how that all got navigated and how they may do things. And there's 32 flavors in this league, and everybody does it a little differently. So it's been fun to be a part of this and try to help where I can, and most especially learn.
I do love the fact that Vrabel was like, I really enjoy going through the personnel meetings and the draft meetings and the free agency meetings yes, even though he told the owner when he was here, I think I'm ready to be GM. And I begged him the day they fired John Robinson. I was like, do not put Vrabel in charge of personnel. Why? Because Vrabel has no experience in personnel. Zero. And so even Vrabel maybe admitting to a fault a little bit by saying, hey, it's nice to be in there. But the crux of what he said was never surprised by anything in the league 25 years in and disappointed that he wasn't able to finish the job the way he wanted to do it. So we put that through our world famous coach translator. Here is what Mike Vrabel really said about his exit from the Titans.
I think it's bullcrap that I got fired, but whatever. There are 32 flavors in this league, just like there are 31 flavors at Baskin-Robbins, and most of them suck.
I mean, I think that's what Vrabel was saying. Hey, when you go into the ice cream shop and they've got like one of these like blue bubble gum, I don't even want to try that one out. No, thank you. And that's what he's saying about the Titans. He said, hey, there's 32 teams here. They do things differently. And, I'm on my way with the Browns. That's what I think Vrabel meant. Now, that being said, I have to give Vrabel a lot of credit. And I'm going to tell you why. Because he's doing and saying everything that he needs to do to, number one, collect from the Titans. The reason Vrabel doesn't have a job on game day, the reason Vrabel's not a defensive coordinator, the reason he's a special assistant is because Vrabel wants to collect that full paycheck from the Titans. If I'm not going to be head coach somewhere else, I want their money, and I can't blame him for that. So he's not, doing anything. And I don't know if they have NDAs or things like that in football when you get fired, and it's like, we're going to pay you all the money, but you have to not badmouth us. I don't know if they do or they don't, but Vrabel is absolutely making sure he collects his check. And he's not causing any problems that would make other teams not want to hire him. Again, you come out and you start saying Amy Adams Strunk is crazy and Rand Carthon was a terrible GM and the collaboration was awful and they stuck me with this, that, or the other. Other owners are going to take note of that, and they're going to say, hey, if something doesn't go right here, then Vrabel's going to throw us under the bus. And I don't think they want that. So I think he's doing his best. Hey, I'm still in the game. I'm learning something new, again, with the personnel stuff. And I'm still collecting my Titans check and not rocking the boat for anywhere else. And I think the other thing is he's given himself something to do. That I know we all talk about getting fired and making millions of dollars. First of us, almost none of us make millions of dollars anyways. But I know we sit there and we talk about, man, I'd love to be a college football coach and get fired. And that's $38 million over the next 4 years. And I don't have to work. And I'm like, these guys go to the beach for like 1 week out of the year. In Vrabel's case, he's a skier. He goes out to Utah and skis. But these guys do that for 1 week out of the year. I remember when Coach Shoup was around after he got fired at South Florida. And he used to tell me, he's like, yeah, I still wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just have no team to coach. So for Vrabel, it's like, okay, it gives me something to do. I keep my mind active by learning something new, going through all the personnel stuff with Andrew Berry. But at the same time, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus with the Titans because that doesn't do me any good. And I have to give him credit. And the reason I give him credit is because, quite frankly, Vrabel's biggest problem, his biggest issue as a coach, in my opinion, is that sometimes he can't help himself from being petty. Sometimes he cannot help himself. It's like Joe would say about that New England speech when he's like, it's not like this anywhere else, Patriot fans, trust me. I've been to all these different places and all these different places. It's like, no, you haven't. You've been here. You've been there. You've been with the Steelers. You've been with the Texans. Who are you talking about? And Joe's like, why would Vrabel go to New England and say something and make his employer? Because Vrabel can't help himself. It's like the Jeffrey Simmons stuff the other day. Nothing about that. Like if Jeffrey Simmons looked at his phone in the locker room and saw a text message of a tweet that Buck sent, and he turned to the guy next to him in the locker room and said, I'm going to go out there and rip Buck, the person next to him would say, why? Like, what is that going to do for you? And there have been times over the years where Mike Vrabel has said things that it's like, why would you say that? And Vrabel is smart enough to understand that he shouldn't do it, but he can't help himself. And so, again, we know Mike, when he probably got up there in front of the podium, it was probably like riding a bike. It actually did kind of sound like he was head coach of the Browns with some of the ways he was answering the questions about philosophy on how to do things. I'm like, whoa. It's the deepest I've ever heard the special assistant to the head coach go. But I think Vrabel got up to the podium, and he doesn't like it. He's like, oh, God, this podium. But he handled it like a pro. He was given an opportunity. Hey, were you surprised about your exit? Look, man, I've been in this league 25 years. I'm not surprised by anything. But the thing with him is sometimes he can't help himself. And he has gone now 8 months without taking any pot shots at the Titans that would A, give us tons of fodder on this program, but B, could harm him from getting a job in the future. Because Mike Vrabel is going to be a head coach this time next year. Now, whether or not Mike Vrabel is going to win, that's a different discussion. But I do have to, again, listen to that answer about the Titans and say, he got out there, he expressed himself about being disappointed, but he didn't throw anybody under the bus. And that is a positive for him. Maybe it was just nice for him to get out there at a press conference and not see me. I don't know. But I do think it's obvious when he says, hey, there are 32 different flavors in this league. That was kind of his way of saying everybody does things differently, and the way we do things here with the Browns, that I want to learn how we do things here with the Browns, because that's got to be a better way than they do things in Tennessee. And time will tell who is right. Because eventually, when it comes to Vrabel, he's going to get another job somewhere else. And if he wins, we might look back on it and say, oh, what could have been? The same way the people in Cleveland, I think for years, probably thought, oh, what could have been? In reference to Belichick and Saban on the same coaching staff and so on and so forth. But that was Again, not surprised by anything in this league. I'm sure Vrabel wasn't surprised he got fired because we weren't surprised he got fired because we talked about it every day. So if we were talking about it and we saw the smoke, clearly he, who's smart enough to see it, saw it inside of that building. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Ian, I have not taken a look at the text line since we started talking about Vrabel. But I guarantee you, there's going to be somebody in here who says something along the line, I don't want to talk about Vrabel. You guys got to talk about Vrabel. He's not here anymore. We've got Brian Callahan, Jared. To which I will say.
Probably so.
To which I will say that when it comes to Brian Callahan versus Vrabel, right now, everybody's going to pick Callahan. But history will decide which one you really like. I'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. We have some breaking news on the program. According to Paul Kaharski, DeAndre Hopkins is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a strained knee. So a knee strain for DeAndre Hopkins. He's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And with that, it means, as Kaharski writes in his post at paulkaharski.com, as he writes, it means that DeAndre Hopkins, as far as that strained knee is concerned, it means that if it's 4 weeks, then he should have a week off and then return for a full week to prepare against Chicago. 6 weeks out would mean that he would miss the Bears game and could be ready just before the week 2 home opener against the Jets, though a precautious 6 weeks out would mean 2 games missed. Now, I watched DeAndre walk off the field yesterday at the end of practice, and it was with a trainer, but I didn't know Like if it was an injury walk or if it was just a DeAndre's walking off the field because there's 8 minutes left in practice and he's done for the day kind of thing. And I guess I just assumed that it was the DeAndre Hopkins walking off the field for, the last 8 minutes of practice because he's going to get his rehab on or something like that. And instead it is a DeAndre Hopkins is out 4 to 6 weeks. So here's what I'll say about that. First of all, 4 to 6 weeks is not the end of the world because DeAndre Hopkins is not a guy who necessarily needs the practice that everybody else would need. DeAndre, unlike everybody else, has banked a ton of reps with this quarterback. So the other two guys, Ridley and Boyd, those two guys are the guys that are going to keep developing the chemistry with Levis, whereas we know that there's a connection there between Hopkins and Levis. The other part about it is what we say with TD last hour when we were talking about Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks, for the second year in a row, looks like he is going to be a training camp All-American. He and Chig might have to make him a plaque for the 2023 and now 2024 training camp All-Star team. But it doesn't really matter much if you're good in practice, if you're not good in the games. Last year, Burks was great at training camp. When they went to Minnesota and Burks hurt his knee, I sat up there from that press box in Minneapolis and I said, oh my God, I don't want to say cancel the season, but there's a part of me that thought I might have to cancel the season. That's how important I thought Treylon Burks was going to be. Then in the first game against New Orleans, he dropped a key third down. Then against Cleveland, he dropped 3 passes. Against the Texans at the end of the year, Levis put a beautiful 70-yard bomb right on his hands at the beginning of the game, and he dropped it. But as we were talking in the last hour, the TD Power Hour, we were talking about what Burks has looked like in practice, which all I can tell you is what I've seen, and what I've seen has been very good. TD was talking about, hey, there's going to be a rotation. He's going to get some time. He's going to. And I said, well, it's highly unlikely that all 17 games are not going to feature all 3 starting receivers. That at some point there's going to be a need for a 4th receiver. Well, congratulations to Treylon Burks. Because as of right now, you're starting for the rest of training camp. And that's good because Burks needs the reps. Burks is going to get first-team reps. Burks is going to get training camp preseason game reps that he did not get last season. Brian Callahan has said they're going to play. So Burks is going to play in the preseason. He's going to play with Will Levis now. And I'd leave him out there and let him play with Mason Rudolph. But this is why you sign Nick Westbrook-Akine. And this is why what was the guy from ESPN that wrote the article that said the Titans should eat $6 million of the $8 million owed to Burks and trade him for a 6th-round pick in 2026? That's why you don't do that. And as I said the whole time, Derek Mason went into the 2000 season in training camp as the Titans' 5th receiver behind Kevin Dyson, who tore his ACL after week 2, behind Yancey Thigpen, who was an old pawpaw, behind Carl Pickens, who went crazy, behind Chris Sanders, who actually had a good year at the other receiver spot, behind Isaac Byrd, who got released. Derek was so far down there. And that year, he set an NFL record for all-purpose yards in a season, made the Pro Bowl, and became a number 1 receiver. The cream rises to the top in the National Football League. If Treylon Burks is as good as this coaching staff was making him out to be in the offseason, and so far he's looked the part in training camp, he'll have the opportunity to show it. And if he shows it in training camp and he shows it in the preseason games, which again, he's not going to be playing second-team reps in the preseason. He'll be on the first team. If that's the case, then we'll see. And maybe he's just a practice guy, a practice superstar. One of those guys in Major League Baseball that ends up, shuttling between AAA and the big leagues. And you go out to a stadium, you talk to one of the players, and they'll tell you, watch this guy in batting practice. This guy in batting practice launches everything 700 feet. Gets in the game, can't hit a curveball. But in batting practice, he just launches them. Right now, that's what Burks is. But he's going to get the opportunity to prove these more than that. And I now feel pretty good, Ian, about 2 predictions that I've made recently.
Okay.
The first, did I say this yesterday or 2 days ago that I said Tyler Boyd's going to lead the team in catches?
Yesterday.
I mean, again, if there was anybody who was going to contend for that, it was going to be either Ridley or Hopkins, especially Hopkins, given the relationship with Levis. Well, now this gives Levis time to work with Boyd and work with Ridley. And I just think that the ball's coming out quick and the ball's going to Tyler Boyd. So now I feel stronger about Tyler Boyd being an important part of what the Titans are going to do, given the fact that now it goes from 3 starting receivers to 2 starting receivers. And what have I said about NWI and Trey Avery? I've said those 2 guys are going to be on the field this year. Because if we were just playing Madden football, or we were just looking at the depth chart, we would say wide receiver, Burks, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Jaquan Jackson's going to get a roster spot because he's going to be the one that returns kicks or punts. So then the NWI after that. And I said, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because NWI is going to find his way on the field. It does not matter who else is on the team. They had the number 2 offense in the NFL with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, and Khalif Raymond was a part of that, and Adam Humphries was on that team, and all those guys. And in the playoff game against the Ravens, who's Tannehill throwing the ball to? NWI. The next year, they bring in Julio Jones. They sign Josh Reynolds. Still have A.J. Brown. And who's catching the ball on 4th down against Pittsburgh? Who's Tannehill throwing the ball to for the 3rd interception against the big NWI? A.J. Brown gets traded. They draft Traylon Burks. They sign they trade for Robert Woods. They bring in, and they're still throwing the ball to NWI. They get rid of Robert Woods. They sign DeAndre Hopkins, and they're still throwing the ball to NWI. NWI is always going to get on the field because he is reliable and he is dependable. And so while, again, Burks is going to get the first crack at replacing Hopkins, do not rule out Nick Westbrook-Akine. And here we are a week and 1 day or whatever it is into training camp. We've worn pads for 2 days. And here we are, and there's already an injury at receiver, which leaves an opening for Nick Westbrook-Akine to get out there on the field. And there's already injuries in the secondary, and Trey Avery's playing with the starters. Those are the 2 guys that, for whatever reason, no matter who they sign, no matter who they trade for, no matter who they draft, no matter what they do, NWI will be on the field. Trey Avery will be on the field. No matter how many times we look at them and say, you know what, gosh, could they get somebody better? It will always be Nick Westbrook-Akine and Trey Avery on the field. You have to cut them in order for them not to find their way on the football field. And the reality is there's just not 6 corners on this team better than Trey Avery. And there's not 6 or 7 wide receivers on this team that are better or more reliable than Nick Westbrook-Akine. So again, the 2 predictions that I've had, NWI is going to find his way on the field. Boyd is going to lead the team. I feel better about that today. The news again coming from Paul Kaharski at paulkaharski.com. DeAndre Hopkins out. DeAndre Hopkins is out for 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. I do wonder what kind of strain that is. Is it like a PCL strain, an MCL strain, a ACL strain, a whatever it may be?
Good question.
Now, TD has posted a video of DeAndre Hopkins with a wrap on his left knee during the individual period of practice, which I didn't even notice that. Again, I watch the big fat guys with the pads on because I'm so scared to death about the offensive line. But that is the news. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Again, PK reporting that DeAndre Hopkins out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. If it's 4 weeks, if it's 4 weeks, DeAndre Hopkins returns for the opener against Chicago. If it's 6, He comes back for week 3. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk White Bison. That's right. I absolutely love White Bison. Twice Daily and White Bison, they're my go-tos. Actually, went to Twice Daily this morning. I got a little breakfast sandwich over there. I love Twice Daily and White Bison. White Bison is your local coffee shop with specialty coffee and so much more. Explore their selection of premium coffee blends, refreshing iced drinks, and food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. Download their app and join the White Bison Rewards program so you can place orders on the go anytime and get rewarded with free coffee. Stop by White Bison and brighten your day with a sweet cinnamon beehive latte, an iced honey nut macchiato, and the vanilla rooibos tea latte. Find your perfect cup at White Bison, where it's finely crafted for you every day.
Hey, folks, good afternoon. Big Joe from the Chase and Big Joe Show, live from Borough Bourbon and Brews down in Murfreesboro on the Square. If you've not been to this place down here, it's absolutely fantastic. And what a day we're going to have here. It's a Game Summer Ticket Tour giveaway brought to you by our good friends at Green River Whiskey. We have tickets, and more tickets to some of the biggest events and concerts in Middle Tennessee. But you got to come see us. That's right. Got to come see us and sign up at Borough Bourbon and Brews. And now until 6 o'clock when we'll be here, you can get an $8 domestic beer plus a shot of green whiskey for only $8. That's it. Come, they got great food, great ambiance. Come here and let me eat your food too while you're at it. Come see us live at Borough Bourbon and Brews on the Square in Murfreesboro. Big Joke, 102.5 The Game.
When you have three guys who are viable number one receivers, like how do you go about that process of making sure that everybody eats?
Yeah, especially during camp, like you want to spread the ball around and you want to give guys love and show them that you have confidence in them and trust in them and that you're going to be coming to them with the ball. It's also on our play callers and everyone on the staff to script things for certain guys and getting it communicated to me or the other quarterbacks what we're really trying to get done with this play. Like there's a situation today where first and long, trying to pump a go ball down the field when we can just get ourselves to a manageable second down situation. But that's just because I want to work on that with Calvin and being able to complete those down the field are going to be big for us. So I'm going to keep coming at guys. I'm going to keep pushing the ball, but also got to do a good job of understanding situations, especially once we get into these call-up periods and starting to play the game more game-like.
That was Will Levis yesterday. Like, okay, so how do you in these practices, how do you get the three receivers all involved? Well, now he's only got to worry about two. Again, Paul Kaharski reporting DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. And I've said the two guys that this matters for really are Treylon Burks and Nick Westbrook-Akine. And I went through, the positions so far, the state of the Titans through the first week or so of training camp. And I said, look, for the second year in a row, Burks and Chig look like all-stars. They look like all-stars in training camp. But I got excited about it last year, and we saw how that went. That's why I'm not ruling out Nick Westbrook-Akine being the one who takes advantage of this. And again, if it's 4 weeks and DeAndre doesn't pick up a football for the next 4 weeks and he's ready to go for Chicago, I think he'll be fine. I don't love it, but I think he'll be fine. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. One texter says time for Burks to pop off. It is time for him to step it up. Now, again, this is what I said when there was all the talk about trading him, and I thought if they can get a 4th-round pick in the next year's draft, they'll trade him. Because the way they'll look at it is we've got 2 more years of contractual control for Treylon Burks, and by adding a 4th-round pick or better, we get 4 years of contractual control. But my guess is that wasn't out there. That there wasn't a team that was like, okay, yeah, hey, we'll take Burks. So that's when they said, well, if nobody wants him, and we know he's got talent, and we know he works hard, and I've never questioned whether or not Burks worked hard, although we did wonder about the conditioning and the shape. If those are the things, then he'll be okay to be a backup, and then if something happens, and just like Chris Sanders and Derek Mason in 2000, let's stick him out there. Well, now you'll get to see it. For some reason, I'm very cautious when it comes to getting excited about Burks. Very, very cautious. One texter says, well, it's a good thing they didn't sign DeAndre Hopkins to an extension. He's on the wrong side of 30, says Skylar. Too early for that. This is not. Did you hear that?
Yep, a little knock.
This is not DeAndre Hopkins out for the season. DeAndre Hopkins might be back for week 1. Again, as Paul said, if he's out for 4 weeks, he'll be back the week before the Chicago game, which means if he's out for 5 weeks, he'll be back for the Chicago game. If he's out for 6 weeks, he'll miss 2. So this is not a season-ending injury. I keep thinking back to the 2022 season when the Titans started off 7-3. They went to Green Bay. They won on Thursday Night Football. Then Todd Downing got the DUI. Then they got beat. They hit the snapper in the neck against Cincinnati. And then AJ went off and they fired John Robinson. And they lost the division. And Josh Dobbs was playing quarterback. And just how bad it got. And everybody says, oh my God, you were so stupid. You were the number 1 seed. You traded away AJ Brown. But I always remember, like the Thursday before the season started, when Vrabel acted like a complete and total piss pants at the podium. And we even said, we played his press conference live, and we're like, what was the matter with that guy? And then a day later, Adam Schefter, at like 2:02, Adam Schefter reports that Harold Landry's out for the season. And so then we did an hour, Caroline and I, talking about the breaking news that Harold Landry's out for the season. Then we had TD on for the TD Power Hour. And TD broke down all the options, what they could do, now that Harold Landry's out. And at 4 o'clock, I said, all right, guys, I gave it 2 hours. They're screwed. They are screwed without their leading receiver from last year, A.J. Brown, and their leading sacker, Harold Landry. And one thing that probably never got talked about, as we moaned and we complained, and again, it was another year with all the injuries, but the thing we never talked about was that Harold Landry tore his ACL, and who knows how different that season could have been if Landry played. That was a devastating loss. This is 4 to 6 weeks. It's not ideal, but it is possible, again, given the time frame, that DeAndre is going to play all 17 games. I am surprised I didn't notice the wrap yesterday, but again, I was too I was down there focusing on the big fat guys because, again, all we've ever worried about anymore is the offensive line. One texter says, this is the prime opportunity for Treylon Burks. This is how Nico Collins had his rebirth with the Texans. It should be noted, I believe Nico Collins was a third-round pick, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe a second-round pick. Nico Collins, I had never heard of him until last year. And then all of a sudden, Nico Collins had a really great season. Maybe it's possible for Burks. Again, the issue with Burks' rookie year was the injuries, right? He had the turf toe, and then when he got back from the turf toe, after all the offseason stuff, when he got back from the turf toe, he really started to come along. Then he got concussed and basically decapitated against Philadelphia. That pretty much wrapped up his season. And then last year, I don't know what it was. Injuries, stone hands. I don't know. He just wasn't very good. Maybe. Again, he'll get the opportunity. But I also would say we've given a lot of opportunities to Treylon Burks to the point that it's like, okay, if you don't get it done this year, and you don't get it done, like you're going to get starters reps tomorrow at practice, where they're expecting to get Nicholas Petit-Frere back tomorrow at practice, which is not open, but you're going to be starting at receiver. Boyd's in the slot. Ridley's outside. You're outside. You're going to get opportunities. I think very quickly, if Burks does not live up to it, they will move Nick Westbrook-Akine in there. And if I was the coach, I would be getting Nick Westbrook-Akine first-team reps. Because, again, NWI always finds his way on the field. So we should all assume that NWI will find his way on the field with this team.
So if Hopkins has to miss week 1, who are you starting? Ridley and NWI?
Ridley, Burks, and Boyd.
You'd go Ridley, Burks. You would put Burks out there.
Well, I mean, that's what we got 3 preseason games.
Sure.
So if Burks gets in the preseason games and he plays well, then Burks.
Because Boyd feels like he won't necessarily be like a 2 wide receiver set starter.
No, he's the slot guy.
So
but they're going to play with 3 wide receivers all the time. They don't have 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
So they're going to put Boyd out there in the slot. So it's going to be those 3 guys. But if Burks doesn't show up in the preseason, then I would work NWI in there. I know what I'm getting with NWI. I know that NWI, if he has to, if Paul's reporting is accurate and Hopkins is out, let's say, again, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Let's say it's 6, and he misses Chicago and the Jets. You can get through with NWI starting for those 2 games. You might not win, but I think you can get through.
Jets might be a little tougher, with Sauce Gardner. He'll be shadowing
Stick him on Ridley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack says 6 weeks for an old man receiver. This seems like it will be an all-season issue. Over under 10 games for Hopkins. Doesn't DeAndre play a lot? Like, I know he got suspended that 1 year, but outside of that, I think DeAndre plays a lot. DeAndre
for the most part, 16, 15, 15, 10, 9, 16. Yeah, for the most part, other than 2 seasons, it's been 15 or 16 games.
I am reading this right now that I went to ESPN. Mike Trout out for the season with another meniscus tear. That's an old pawpaw who just can never stay healthy. Again, not that anybody cares about Angels baseball, but DeAndre is not Mike Trout. One texter says, are they still yelling turbo, turbo at the offensive line? So if you listen to all the teams that run that kind of Shanahan system, it is turbo set and then they go. But I have not heard Bill Callahan yell turbo. Bill Callahan yells like he'll be sitting there like ready to go. And then they go. And then if he needs to correct something, he corrects it. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. That's how I know that Jalen Duncan's got to work on his hip placement because Bill Callahan was coaching him up on his hip placement. I cannot tell you the night and day difference, though, between the offensive line coaching and just the pure equipment that Bill Callahan and his group use compared to what old buddy Hodling used last year. I mean, again, last year there'd be 2 guys. So say it'd be me and Ian would be paired off. One of us would hold the pad. He'd go turbo and we'd go right to the pad. Bill Callahan's got so many toys. It's like a mistress's dungeon over there where the offensive line gets to work. Totally different. And all the stuff's very practical, which I have to give Bill Callahan credit for. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Okay, a lot of you still want to weigh in on the Mike Vrabel stuff. We banked a lot of your text messages from that. Again, Vrabel talking about his Titans exit. Throw that into the list. We'll go back to your phones. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
Mike, what was your timeline from January on of thinking maybe you'd get another job or wondering what was actually going to be next?
Well, certainly wanted to take every opportunity and talk to everybody that called, and had some great interviews, met with some great organizations. They decided to go in a different direction, which happens sometimes, and then was able to hear from Andrew and Kevin and keep those conversations going. Met at the combine and visited and talked and got to know their staff. I mean, there's a lot of great people here. They've hired great people, and they empower them to do their job. They give them ownership from a personnel perspective, from an analytics perspective, from a player development perspective, and then ultimately a coaching perspective.
There you go. That was Vrabel talking about his new job in Cleveland. A lot of people wanted to weigh in that before Paul Karski broke the news that DeAndre Hopkins is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Caleb says, Mike Vrabel is now a personal assistant. LOL. Let me say this. If Mike Vrabel wanted to be a defensive coordinator, he probably would be. I think this is a defensive coordinator. You got to pay me. It offsets the Titans. I'd rather not do that. Give me a job where I can be around, kind of take some time off. Doesn't have a job on game days. Take a little bit of time off, but also work, get to spend, stay in the game and get to learn new things and still get my check from Amy. I mean, a lot of people don't want to admit this. Mike Vrabel is going to be a head coach next year, and he's going to probably win. Now, 5 years later, he'll have made everybody else there mad, and he'll get fired, but he's going to be a coach next year, and he's going to win. That's as simple as that. One texter who, again, I love this guy because he listens for 4 hours a day and texts every segment, but especially when we start talking about Vrabel, says Vrabel can't help himself, dropping F-bombs in press conferences, goes off on reporters, but you, Jared Stillman, think he's a good coach and always give him a pass. You're insane if you think he'll be a head coach next year, yet Big Jeff you go crazy about. It's so hypocritical. Buddy, I was the one guy in town calling for Vrabel to be fired. I gave him a pass. I'm the one that bitched about the O-line coach. I'm the one that complained about Vrabel's inability to hire a coaching staff. I'm the one that got into it with Vrabel about the New England comments. I'm the one that got into it with Vrabel about Craig Aukerman. Me, Vrabel is going to get a job. This guy is in total denial, being like, he's not going to get a job. He's the biggest weenie. He's going to get a job. One texter says, what part of Mike Vrabel does Jared miss, and what part was he happy to see walk out the door? Good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be easy to say the part that I'm happy that is gone is I didn't think Vrabel really was good at hiring assistant coaches, as you all know. And I don't think that this is necessarily his fault as much as I think it is a symptom of him not having coached very long before getting a head coaching job. Now, Brian Callahan has been coaching for a decade, and he's coached in Denver. He's coached in Detroit. He's coached in Cincinnati. He's coached in all these different places. And, of course, obviously his dad being his dad, he's been around the game his entire life. Vrabel has really, in the NFL, been two places. Well, three. Pittsburgh, New England, and Houston. That's why when he took the job, all the assistant coaches either came from the Texans or Ohio State. Now, he brought in Jim Haslett, who was a coach of his in Pittsburgh, but Mike Vrabel just didn't know enough people. And it's hard when you're as controlling as Vrabel is, it's hard to hire people you don't know to important positions. So he didn't hire a lot of people that he didn't know. He hired people from the Texans. He hired people from Ohio State. He hired Dean Pease, who was his coordinator when he played in New England. So I'm not going to miss that. What I am going to miss is, in my estimation with Vrabel, you knew where you stood. Even me, like I knew where I stood with Mike Vrabel. And he knew where he stood with me. And I don't anticipate Vrabel and I will be friends down the road, although I would never rule it out. But one of the reasons why I think Peter Laviolette and I got along, now I never called for Laviolette to be fired either, and I was very disappointed when he was fired. But one of the reasons why I think we got along after, really while he was the coach, but even afterwards, was the fact that we had the relationship where, one of us had something to say, we said it. And I think that even though Vrabel can be very passive aggressive, even though I think Vrabel bitches about me, like I felt like if he had something to say, he'd say it. If I felt like I had something to say, I'd say it. And it wasn't the end of the world. But, so I guess that's what I'll miss about Vrabel. I don't know, Ian, was that an in my feelings explanation?
Maybe a little.
Just, what am I supposed to say? Like, oh, I'm going to miss the AFC title game. Like, Of course. Steven says, I hope Mike Vrabel passes that pineapple. He always looks like he was trying to poop on the sidelines. That really only became a thing the last 2 years. And the Mariota game at Denver. But it was the Vrabel bent over at the waist, looking like he had been on a bender all night, trying to throw up in the toilet. You know that feeling when you've got to throw up? You know, I haven't had this feeling in forever. I really don't drink that much anymore. But when I was in college, you know, it might surprise you guys to all know that when I was in college, I was the kind of guy who was like, oh, we're going out and getting shots tonight. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one in college who was that way, but that's how I was in college. And you know the feeling when you know, like, oh, God, I have got to throw up, but the second I throw up, I'm going to feel 1,000 times better. That's how Vrabel looked on the sidelines the last 2 years coaching. And I would assume that maybe he's probably feeling a little bit better now. One texter says, Vrabel's the Laviolette of the NFL. He's a serial winner, but pisses everyone off along the way. I think I've been saying that for like 3 years. And I could not believe it. How many people in the local media around here that covered both Vrabel and Laviolette? You know, there's a handful of people that just cover the Titans. Like Paul and Jim Wyatt and TD, and like they're the Titans beat. But most of the people that cover the Titans also cover the Predators, whether it's me or Joe or Corey Curtis or whatever. And the amount of people in this town that covered this team, that when Laviolette got fired, we're like, well, you know, Laviolette's got a shelf life. He only lasts a couple of years. Everywhere he wins right away, and then he's got to go. And didn't see the same patterns with Vrabel. I'll never, ever, ever understand how it wasn't like they were like, well, Vrabel shouldn't be fired. He's a great coach. I'm like, where were you when Peter got fired? Because it's the same thing. Ben in Cumberland City, who was all butthurt thinking that his texts weren't going through the other day, says, what's with this weird obsession of hating people once they leave Nashville? My God, people will fight you in the middle of Broadway to defend just about anyone while they wear the colors. And once they're gone, they're the most hated person ever. Weird obsession. That is, like, Chad Withrow and I talk about this all the time. That is the in J-Rob We Trust crew. Now, look, I like John Robinson. I think John Robinson deserves a second shot in the NFL. I thought John Robinson at least deserved to finish out the year. Probably would have given him another year just based on the winning that he was doing. I know, crazy to think that winning actually matters, but I felt like winning mattered. But they felt differently, and they just up and fired him. But the amount of people that would text in the text line, because I would complain about things John Robinson did. It's a daily report card. The amount of people that were just, I mean, I trust John Robinson more than you. And then the next day acted like he was the stupidest person to ever run a football team was beyond me. I mean, I pushed hard against things that I didn't like that they did. The fact that they didn't have a right tackle bothered me a lot. A 270-pound left guard bothered me a lot. But it's not like when he got fired, I thought the guy didn't know how to run a football team. It's not like I forgot all the winning that they did. It's not like I forgot about A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons and Ryan Tannehill. And it's not like I forgot about all that. But I do feel like a lot of people around here did forget about that when he got fired. And it's to the texter's point that it's like as soon as they take the colors off, it's like, I mean, I remember when Vrabel and I got into it about Craig Aukerman, and everyone was like, Vrabel showed you. And now it's like, yeah, screw Vrabel. There is something to that about you guys. But I don't think it's necessarily the city. I think a lot of places are probably like that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The news of the day, DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. And I'm going to have a very unpopular opinion that we'll get to next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. And the big news of the day, Paul Kaharski reporting at paulkaharski.com. DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. Again, I saw DeAndre walk off the field at the end of practice yesterday with about 5 minutes left, something like that. And I just thought, oh, well, I guess DeAndre's done for the day. But I didn't think it was due to an injury, and clearly it was due to an injury, and the Titans will be without DeAndre Hopkins. And this is a big deal. I mean, people on Twitter are, oh, my God, oh, God, no. Or, oh, this is time for Treylon Burks to step up, or my girlfriend, who doesn't really follow the NFL very much, but I'm very proud of her. She's in the music industry, not in the sports industry. She texted me and said, have you seen the DeAndre Hopkins news? And I was like, yeah, I've seen the DeAndre news. So it's a big deal. So is it wrong that I don't think this is that big of a deal? I mean, I understand, again, DeAndre out 4 to 6 weeks. It's DeAndre. They're counting on DeAndre. DeAndre's the leading receiver coming back. Jared, last week, you were yelling and screaming about wanting to give DeAndre Hopkins an extension. He's out 4 to 6 weeks.
Does this change your mind about that?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think this is that big of a deal. And I'll tell you why. Number one, it's 4 to 6 weeks. It's not for the season. If it was for the season, you hear that?
Yeah, we heard the knock.
If it was for the season, that'd be a different discussion. Again, I talk about that day a couple years ago when Harold Landry tore his ACL, and I gave it an hour, and then TD came on for an hour, and then I looked at Caroline, and I said, they're screwed. And she was like, but Weaver could step up, or I'm like, no. Like, there's just guys you can't lose for the season. Harold Landry's one of them. So if this were the season for DeAndre, then yeah, I'd be freaking out. But it's not the season. In fact, 4 to 6 weeks, if it's 4 weeks, DeAndre might not miss a single game. If it's 6 weeks, which again is the end of it, then DeAndre would miss 2 games. Well, you can get by for 2 games. You can get by with Trey Avery for 2 games. You can get by with the Titans in 2020, the year they had the second ranked offense in the NFL, went on the road in November. It was actually the last show Floyd ever did with us was the pregame show. Before this Ravens game, they won in overtime, and Roger Saffold was hurt, and Aaron Brewer went in there. You can win a game with Aaron Brewer. You can't win 17. So if the worst case scenario is 6 weeks, DeAndre's only going to miss 2 games. That's okay. That's okay. Best case scenario, 4 weeks. He gets a week to go for the Chicago game. He'll be fine. The second reason why I don't think it's that big of a deal is because DeAndre is the one guy who has banked a buttload of reps with Will Levis. Going back to last year, it was obvious that Will Levis looked up to DeAndre Hopkins. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what Derrick Henry brings the team in terms of leadership that is now gone in addition to the production. Even if you were to just look at the Pro Football Focus numbers and say, Tony Pollard's 4 years younger, Tony Pollard technically ran the ball better than Derrick last year, and Tony's a better receiver than Derrick, there is something that leaves the building when Derrick Henry walks out. Well, Will Levis was 24 years old last year. DeAndre Hopkins has been in the NFL for 12 years? So when Will Levis was 14, DeAndre Hopkins was a star in the NFL. So the idea of playing quarterback in the NFL and knowing that's DeAndre Hopkins was always a big deal to Will Levis. And you could tell they were tight. And you could tell that sideline incident against Indianapolis, if you want to call it that. I mean, I think that's probably a little too harsh, but that probably grew them closer. Well, then they were working out together in the offseason, and you go out to Cabo together in the OTAs. I mean, DeAndre loves Will Levis up and down. Will Levis loves DeAndre up and down. They have gotten so many reps banked between the two of them that it'll be okay. In fact, Levis was asked yesterday about getting the ball to 3 number 1 receivers, because Ridley's been a number 1 receiver. Hopkins has been a number 1 receiver. Boyd's been a number 1 receiver, though it has been a while since Boyd was a number 1 receiver. But they've all been number 1 receivers. And Levis is like, yeah, I've got to be able to. Well, now Levis in camp and in practice can really worry about getting the ball to Ridley and Boyd, the guys that he needs to build the reps with. So, number one, DeAndre's only out 4 to 6 weeks. And they don't play a game in the next 4 weeks. So if it's 4, he's not even missing a game. If it's 6, he's only missing 2 games. Number 2, he's got a ton of reps banked with Will Levis. And number 3, this opens an opportunity for Treylon Burks to, I don't want to say reclaim his spot, but when he was drafted, and it was a swap, it was a 1-for-1 swap. If you want to add Malik to that, you can, but it was Treylon Burks for A.J. Brown. The Titans thought they were acquiring a younger, healthier version of A.J. when they made the trade. I say the Titans, but Vrabel clearly didn't with his reaction at the time. He was a starter day one. He was a starter last year. Even when they added DeAndre, there was nobody else opposite Burks that would make you even think they were capable of starting. Well, this year, the Titans didn't go into the offseason thinking Burks was a starter. They signed Calvin Ridley for a crap load of money. Then on top of the money that they gave Calvin Ridley, they were really interested in Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, not that, training camp practices, Burks killing it in practice too, and we're cautious about that. But apparently Malik Neighbors is just lighting up Giants camp. For whatever that's worth. But I think just reading the tea leaves, they would have taken Malik Neighbors if he was there over J.C. Latham. That's how much they liked. They would have taken Malik Neighbors and figured something out at tackle. That's how much they like Neighbors. So if you're that invested in Ridley with the money and that invested with the pick with Harrison or Neighbors, that tells you, yeah, they didn't view Burks as a priority. Now, Brian Callahan lied about it when they signed Tyler Boyd and was like, no, we think there's a big role for Treylon on this team. And I rolled my eyes like, okay. Well, now Burks is going to get a spot back, at least for the meantime. My guess is they play, San Francisco next Saturday? Burks is starting at wide receiver. Levis is starting at quarterback. Let's see. Last time Levis played quarterback, he threw a 70-yard bomb to start the game and it hit Treylon Burks in the hands and went down to the turf. Well, now he's going to start, and I would assume Ridley will start, and I assume Boyd will start, and now Treylon Burks gets in the mix. And then after about 2 series, Boyd comes out, Ridley comes out, the other guys go in, NWI and Kyle Phillips and Jaquan Jackson and Mason Kinsey, those guys go in, and I'm leaving Burks out there. So, again, this isn't, in my opinion, that big of a deal. I don't think it's that bad. And I know a lot of people are going to panic because, again, we're just trained when we see out with a knee injury 4 to 6 weeks. It's like, oh, my God, because the feeling is the same as if this is October 13th. And if he's missing 4 to 6 weeks on October 13th, it's like, oh, God, that's Houston and Philadelphia and the Chargers and Indianapolis. And right now, you don't have that. Don't have that as far as all that's concerned. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matt has been waiting patiently and is up next here on the program on DeAndre Hopkins. Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Stillman. Nice to hear from you, man.
Good. You too.
I have to say that I agree with you 100%. I think this is a non-story. I mean, maybe just because it is. He left early, it is. But, I mean, you got to remember this guy is notorious for not wanting to practice. So, out for the remaining of August. Sounds like 4 weeks to me.
Let me say this, Matt, and I appreciate your call about the DeAndre not practicing, because I think a lot of people are going to say that. They're going to say DeAndre does not practice. DeAndre does practice. At least he has with the Titans. And when DeAndre got to the Titans in his first press conference, he was like, yeah, that's overblown. And I think he was taking a crack at Bill O'Brien. And it's like, Bill O'Brien made up some bull crap. That's not true. He didn't say it, but that's the vibe I got. But he has practiced with the Titans. It kind of reminds me, and remember, DeAndre Hopkins has called me a racist twice, and I know I'm not a racist. But it reminded me of the story Floyd used to tell about Kevin Carter, which was when he was with the Titans, Kevin Carter was drafted in the first round in 95, the year they took Steve McNair. And Kevin Carter told us one time when he was cheering the GM, he was like, I had no idea why the Oilers were interested in me. I knew they were going to take McNair, but they did a lot of homework on Kevin Carter. And then Kevin Carter got a reputation of being a bad guy, being lazy with the Rams. And they knew, the Titans did, that could not be true because they got to know him during the draft process. They know he's not lazy. They know he loves football. And they made the trade for him. And Kevin Carter, for 3 or 4 years, he was a great Titan. And it was all because they knew that reputation, that story was overblown. The reputation that DeAndre Hopkins doesn't practice, I believe, is overblown. So that, I'm not going to say is not that big of a deal because he doesn't practice anyway, because he has practiced since he's been here. He's been a model citizen outside of the haircut in the locker room, which I didn't like. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back to your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. Again, the news, Paul Kawarski reporting DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks with a muscle strain in his knee. Or I guess it's a muscle. A knee strain. We'll get to your phones. Plus, the one guy, I see a lot of talk about Burks stepping up. We talked about NWI. There's one other guy that's going to have to carry the load. Let's say DeAndre's out. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Hey, folks, good afternoon. Big Joe from the Chase and Big Joe Show, live from Borough Bourbon and Brews down in Murfreesboro on the Square. If you've not been to this place down here, it's absolutely fantastic. And what a day we're going to have here. It's a Game Summer Ticket Tour giveaway brought to you by our good friends at Green River Whiskey. We have tickets, and more tickets to some of the biggest events and concerts in Middle Tennessee. But you got to come see us. That's right. Got to come see us and sign up at Borough Bourbon and Brews. And now until 6 o'clock when we'll be here, you can get an $8 domestic beer plus a shot of green whiskey for only $8. That's it. Come. They got great food, great ambiance. Come here. Let me eat your food, too, while you're at it. Come see us live at Borough Bourbon and Brews on the Square in Murfreesboro. Big Joke, 102.5, the game.
You mentioned the wide receiver room when we talked to you last at OTAs. It's still exciting to be with a group of guys, and especially now, first day of camp is here.
Oh yeah, we got a veteran group under the other guys, but D-Hop and TB. It's great to be around those guys. Very confident guys. Very good in their craft and stuff. So I can learn a lot from them. But also being on the field with them helps. The offense move the ball pretty good with the guys we got.
That is Calvin Ridley. Let me say this about Calvin Ridley since he's shown up with the Titans. Calvin Ridley has been as complimentary about everybody else as humanly possible. Complimentary about Levis, complimentary about Burks, complimentary about the coaching, the whole room. You heard earlier in the offseason when he said that Burks was like a combination of Julio, AJ, and T.O. all into one, which is some high praise. Guess what? If this DeAndre Hopkins injury is a bigger deal than I think it is, because again, I think 4 to 6 weeks, if it's 4 weeks, he's not even going to miss a game. He's got plenty of reps banked up with Will Levis. I do not think this is that big of a deal. But if it is, we're talking about Burks stepping into the lineup. And okay, Traylon, it's up to you. I'm talking about NWI because, as you know, I keep believing that NWI, one way or another, is going to find his way on the field. But the guy who's really got to step up is Ridley, because they are paying Calvin Ridley to be a number one receiver. Now, I don't know what you guys think as far as Ridley's concerned. I don't view him as a number one. Like when we're talking Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and the top receivers, the number one, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I do not view Ridley in that same category. I would argue that Ridley is probably not in T. Higgins category, which is low end too. So high end too. So Stephon
I think he's better
Diggs,
than Higgins.
You think Ridley's better than Higgins?
I do, yeah. Higgins seems to me just kind of like a one-trick pony.
Based off of what you know, if Brian Callahan was sitting there and the contracts were the same, Higgins or Ridley, who do you think Brian Callahan would have taken this offseason?
I don't know. That's a good question because he knows Higgins much better. Who would I don't know about Brian Callahan. I would take Ridley.
Oh, I take Higgins.
But
I take Higgins.
Ridley's faster. He's a better route runner.
Higgins has a bigger body and can go up and get it, and he's more reliable to catch the ball.
Maybe.
So I take Higgins. But I think they're kind of in the same category, right?
I would put Ridley just a notch above, but
oh no, I like that.
I would put Ridley as a 1B, not a 1A.
Stephon Diggs or Ridley?
Diggs.
Brandon Ayuk or Ridley?
They're pretty close.
Oh no.
I think they're pretty close, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Ayuk's going to get $30 million a year.
That's because the market.
He's not even a free agent. Ridley was a true free agent, got 23.
Yeah, because he's older.
D-Mace just texted me Higgins. Not that D-Mace is the end-all be-all, because, I argue with him and Chris Plain on the pregame show, but because he's taking my side, I will.
Yeah, D-Mace doesn't like Ridley because he thinks he drops the ball too much.
D-Mace loved Ridley when he was a free agent. What are you talking about? D-Mace is like pants off for Ridley.
But Higgins drops the ball a lot, and he's hurt too.
Higgins does get hurt. Does Higgins drop the ball?
I think so, yeah.
They don't drop it against the Titans. That's for sure. Regardless, they are paying Calvin Ridley to be a number one wide receiver. And while he probably is not a true number one wide receiver, there is something that has to be said for, all right, guys, you paid me to come in here. DeAndre's out. Throw me the ball. I'm going to take care of this. And I will argue that Calvin Ridley did not do that last year in Jacksonville when Christian Kirk got hurt. When Christian Kirk got hurt, it was noticeable how important his absence was to their offense. If Christian Kirk's healthy in that Week 17 game against the Titans, Jacksonville wins. I mean, if Calvin Ridley catches the ball in the fourth quarter, Jacksonville might win that game. But Kirk was kind of the go-to guy that Lawrence would wear out, and then Ridley was kind of the big play guy. And I think that's what the plan was here. If Hopkins is going to miss a significant amount of time, in my opinion, then Ridley has to be both. Ridley has to be, hey, throw it to me 11 times a game, and I'm going to break off some big plays. I don't know if he can do it, but that's what the money's for. One texter says, a sprain is a stretch or tear of a ligament. A strain is an injury of a muscle or tendon. I would much rather have a strain than a sprain. So that is some good news on the DeAndre front. Muscles and tendons recover much quicker than do ligaments, which typically require surgery when injured. Well, we don't know if he's having surgery or not. I would say this, though, for the Titans. 4 to 6 weeks right off the bat, there is a new sheriff in town. Because with Mike Vrabel, I remember when Carson Wentz broke his foot in training camp with the Colts, and I want to say they were like, yeah, it's a 4 to 12 week injury. And I asked Vrabel about it, and I was like, hey, just your reaction to Carson Wentz out 4 to 12 weeks. Vrabel goes, 4 to 12 weeks, huh? Boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot of weeks in there to get it right.
Quite the window.
Which I did think was kind of funny.
Do you think this is any type of sign about how Brian Callahan and the new staff will handle injuries?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Callahan gets up there at the press conference. Is like, all right, Johnny Joe has a hand. Jimmy has a knee.
He's pulling the Malarkin.
Well, so I'm a little torn on this either way. I mean, I appreciate the transparency, and it does stop like the incessant speculation that we used to do when Vrabel was the coach. I mean, I remember Rashaan Evans banged up his ankle one year, and we talked about like he was out. We talked about Rashaan Evans for like 6 weeks about what this mystery was going on with him. But at the same time, Floyd used to think that when Jeff Fisher would get out there and would read off the injuries at the start of the press conference, that he was like making excuses. And so I'm a little torn one way or another.
We used to call Vrabel Coach Cautious.
Coach Cautious, because he wouldn't let anybody practice.
So I wonder if Callahan pulling a little.
So I will say
cautious
this about the difference between Callahan and Vrabel in the practices. The intensity of the practices, a Mike Vrabel practice, in my opinion, was much more intense than a Brian Callahan practice. But it should be noted that the Vrabel way, whether or not this is, A and B, whether or not the Vrabel way, guys were always getting hurt. So maybe the lack of intensity in practice is actually a good thing. Not to say that they don't have intensity in practice. It's just not the same level of intensity of a Vrabel practice. Caleb says, I clearly have no sources on this, just a hunch, but I think D-Hop is okay. I think it is more precautionary. My source is trust me, bro. Yeah, I don't know if I can do the whole trust me, bro. I feel like that's a little too much. But again, as far as it's concerned, with the 4 to 6 weeks, if it's 6 weeks, he misses 2 games. 2 games, not the end of the world. One texter says, as far as Treylon Burks goes, I am cautiously optimistic. I am not expecting him to play a lot because he always seems to get injured and his performance has not been very good. Let's be honest, however, if he turns out to be a superstar this year, then it's just a bonus anyways. So I'm not expecting too much, but if he goes out there and plays well, then great. This takes me back to the Ridley thing with the money. Calvin Ridley makes so much money that if you have to get by for 3 games, which again, 6 weeks would be 2 games. But if you have to get by for 3 games with a starting receiver group of Ridley, Boyd, and Nick Westbrook-Akine, Ridley should be able to carry you through it. That's what the money is for. So we shall see if he lives up to expectations. Hopefully it's not David Givens. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Again, the news. Paul Garski reporting DeAndre out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. I have an athletic training source that has given me a breakdown of what they think of DeAndre's knee. And I asked the question. I said, should he be good to go at the end of this? What he had to say, we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 the game.
this group's obviously different than what you had in Cincinnati and, you know, with Brian. I mean, Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is T. Higgins. But you mentioned Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. Do you feel like that with this offense and with Will that you guys can have something similar like with how the offense works to what you had in Cincinnati? You all, like you just said, having your different roles?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I think the most important thing with getting this offense to go is just the chemistry, you know, just getting the reps. You know, it kind of was the same thing in Cincinnati. We all knew we had great playmakers and great guys that can do different things better than others, you know, but it just took time for the timing to be right with the quarterback and just guys being where they need to be and guys sacrificing themselves to allow other guys to get open. You know, I think all of that plays a part. And just because you have great players and great receivers and running backs doesn't mean you're going to be great. You know, you got to find some type cultural relationship within guys before you get out there and kind of just cut it loose.
That was Tyler Boyd of the Chase and Big Joe show out of training camp. And he said, hey, we got to get the chemistry. Well, the good news is DeAndre Hopkins, who reportedly has a 4 to 6 week knee strain, DeAndre Hopkins already has the chemistry with Will Levis. Now's the opportunity to bank the reps with Ridley and Boyd especially. You know, I think Hopkins and NWI are fine in terms of their connection with Levis. Burke should be, but who knows? Those two, those are the guys that Levis really has to focus on now because those are the guys that are all going to have to step up if Hopkins does miss any time. Again, if it's 4 weeks, he doesn't miss a game. If it's 6 weeks, he misses 2. It's not the end of the world. So, Ian, I texted, I'm going to say this is an athletic training source.
Okay.
So this is somebody who is a, licensed big-time athletic trainer, works on pro athletes. That's all I'll say. Many pro athletes. I sent him a text. I said, Hopkins strained knee out 4 to 6 weeks. What do you think? He said, and I think he took a picture from a video that TD posted of Hopkins in the one-on-one yesterday with the knee wrap. And he said, grade 2 LCL strain/tear, assuming the picture from practice yesterday is accurate, and then sent the picture from the video that TD posted with the knee wrap on Hopkins. So I said, what's the likelihood that he's back to normal? Not back on the field, but what's the likelihood that he's normal in the next 4 to 6 weeks? And I'm going to say this. The answer is half good, half bad. The half that's good is he said it should be very realistic that Hopkins gets back to normal in 4 to 6 weeks. You want to know what the bad part is, though?
I guess.
He said, but honestly, with their training staff, who knows?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means that, again, like I said, this is somebody who works on pro athletes. This is not some Johnny Joe, this is somebody who works with the best of the best. And he made the comment with that Titans training staff, who knows? Now, it's amazing to me that over the last 3 years, the Titans have had the injuries that they've had. And they've changed the turf because they thought that would make a difference. And they fired the coach because they think that'll make a difference. And they have the analytics now that tell them when not to practice hard and all that kind of stuff. But they have not changed the training staff. Todd Torricelli, and I don't know Todd Torricelli from a jar of Vicks, other than, I see him out on the practice field. I know what he looks like, but I don't know him from a jar of Vicks. He might be the Mother Teresa of athletic trainers. I have no idea. But that's just somebody telling me that, hey, that training staff, who knows?
You don't know Nate Davis from a jar of Vicks.
And I don't know Todd Torricelli, old man, from a jar of Vicks either. But I do find it fascinating. And again, this is not about me thinking that Todd Torricelli's bad at his job because I have no idea. Number one, I'm not even remotely qualified to be able to judge whether or not a trainer is good at his job. If I was in the training room every day, I would not be qualified enough to be able to tell you whether or not the trainer's any good. And secondly, I'm not in the training room every day. I'm not in the training room any day. And so how would I know if the trainer's any good or not either? But it is a little surprising that after the last 3 years they've had, if they're going to blame the field turf and rip that up and go put out some new turf, the coconut turf or whatever it is they have, they got to water the turf. If they're going to do that and spend the money to do that, and they're going to fire the coach and they're going to bring in a new coach, it is surprising that they haven't brought in a new trainer, right? So we'll just keep that in mind. One texter says, if there's any position the Titans can afford an injury at, it's definitely wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely going to be missed due to his reliability and chemistry with Will Levis, but I am almost certain Boyd will be able to slide into his role for a game or two with almost no drop-off, and NWI will hold down the position until Hopkins is back to 100%. If that takes one game or three, we need him as close to healthy as possible with the difficulty of the upcoming season's schedule. I'll say this. When it comes to, the idea of, hey, receiver, you can take an injury there. You can't just take it. Like, if DeAndre was out for the year, which he's not. If DeAndre was out for the year, we'd be reciting the mourner's Kaddish right now on the air. But he may not miss a game. I understand the idea of, hey, you can put Burks in there, you put NWI in there, and that's fine for a couple of games. If you're going to be good this year, and I don't think you're going to, that's just me, but if you think you're going to be good this year, you need DeAndre Hopkins. Let's not kid ourselves. DeAndre's probably what? The second, third best player on the team? Ian, let's rank them. Right now, let's draft them out.
On offense or just the team?
The whole team. You've got the first pick.
Who do I take?
Yeah.
Snead.
Oh, I was going to take Snead second. I'll take Simmons. I was thinking you were going to take Simmons. I was going to take Snead. I'll take Simmons.
Okay, next. Cushenberry?
I mean, at this point, aren't you getting kind of close to Hopkins?
Yeah, probably.
See? So, like, the idea of, oh, no, it's okay. We'll be fine. We can afford an injury at receiver.
Top 5, maybe. Maybe Landry could make it up there.
Right. Landry, Ridley, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't put Boyd in that group. Wouldn't put Levis in that group.
Probably
wouldn't put the 2 running backs in that group.
Can't put Pollard in there yet.
No. And receiver is a very, very valuable position in this league. That's why they all make $30 million now, because it's very, very valuable. Lenny says you can't just throw, I know somebody, you've got to name them. No, I don't. This is my show. And on my show, I get to pick what qualifies as a source worth talking about. And all I will say is that my source is an active, high-end trainer who works on pro athletes. High-end. And it's amazing how much money these people have started to make. But you can't tell me I can't use that as a source. Number one, this is a one-source show. We've said it many times. We don't need 18 different people to confirm something. If something's out there, we can talk about it. Secondly, I decide what gets on the show. I decide the credibility of the sources on the show. And since it's my source, I know it's credible. So no, I'm not going to name it. This is not going to happen. Josh from Dixon texts in and says, man, I miss hearing the GM's voice. Me too. I have a hard time. There are some things at practice I've been seeing, some things with the Titans overall I've been seeing that I know, and I hate putting words into his mouth, because there were a lot of times where I thought he'd think something and he'd think something else, and I'd be like, oh my God, I couldn't believe he thought that. So I don't want to assume how he would feel. But there are a handful of things I've seen that I'm like, the GM would not be okay with that. Most notably the right tackle position the last 3 years. But there have been a lot of things I've seen where I'm like, oh, I don't know if the GM would like that. And there's kind of this internal, this internal kind of like, how much of this is like the new school way of doing things versus the old man's old school way. But, man, there's some things I see. I'm like, gee, I wouldn't like that. I'll tell you that right now. TD says, anyone trying to downplay this injury better not have been pushing for an extension a couple weeks ago. Well, that TD texted me that. Well, but so here's the question. I just told you. If this was an out for the season injury, what I say we'd be doing? We'd be reciting the mourner's Kaddish, which is the prayer Jewish people say when somebody dies.
Amen.
I mean, that's why I just said when we drafted the play, I'm like, look, I know you can sit there and you can say like, oh, look, hey, we'll just put Burks in there. What a minute. This is DeAndre Hopkins. As I said, the third, fourth, fifth best player on this team. But my thing is, if it's 4 to 6 weeks, he can miss practice. It'll be okay. But, yeah, you don't lose DeAndre Hopkins. Get better. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is a new app that is out that they want every single one of you to not only download, but to pay for. But should you? Next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, let's give something away. I'm in a good mood, Ian. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see 30 Seconds to Mars at Ascend Amphitheater this Saturday. Again, the big news, good luck on those. The big news of the day, Paul Kaharski reporting DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. TD says the Titans are optimistic about the 4 weeks. So keep that in mind. That does sound like a good thing. And like I said, he's got plenty of reps banked with Levis. That should be okay. Now, I do want to touch on this. First of all, congratulations to everybody because we have made it. And you're probably thinking, what do you mean we have made it? We have made it to the end of the offseason. I told you guys, I get very depressed, like right on the Thursday, Friday of the Super Bowl because I'm like, oh, now we have all this time with no football games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have made it because tonight is the Hall of Fame game. Now, I'm not going to watch the Hall of Fame game because I'm not sure I care. Now, if I got nothing else, maybe I'll watch a couple plays, and I'll be like, football, which is not a bad thing. But there was an announcement today. There is a new streaming service that is coming out. Everybody's got a streaming service now. The new streaming service is called Venue Sports. What? It is ESPN, Fox, and Turner all combined into one. Basically, they're trying to make it the sportsman's package. It will launch this fall. And they have now released their price, $42.99 a month. So when I saw $42.99 a month, I thought, that's outrageous. What am I getting with this? You're getting Fox, which is already for free, ABC, which is also already for free, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN Plus, and all the SEC, ACC, FCC, whatever, all those networks, you get that. TNT, TBS, and Fox Sports 1. That platform will include the entirety of the portfolio. This is from their press release. Will include the entirety of the portfolio of live sports rights owned by its parent companies, including the NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, college football, basketball, amongst others. Venue subscribers will also have access to 14 traditional TV sports networks of its parent companies, including ESPN, ABC, Fox, TNT, TBS. So then I sat there and I did the math. I currently pay $90.86 a month for YouTube TV. Now, I think YouTube TV starts at $72, but I pay for Sunday Ticket, and I think I pay for 4K. I get some big TVs. But at the same time, I do personally watch a lot of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. Like, I do watch those channels. Plus, I already get all of the ESPN, Fox, and Turner channels with YouTube TV, and I also get NFL Network. And YouTube TV for me has an unlimited DVR. So I did the math at that $90 number. I'm paying about $1,100 a year for cable, plus another $100-ish for ESPN Plus. Venue at $42.99 a month for 12 months is $515.88 pre-tax. So add another $50, and we're talking about $560, $570 for the year. So I am roughly paying double the amount of money in order to have cable with the DVR and NFL Network. Ian, do you think it's worth $500 for me to be able to watch regular cable and NFL Network and the DVR? I don't know if this Venue Sports has a DVR or not. Do you think it is worth the $500 extra that I pay? Or should I switch as a primary sports fan? Should I switch to the Venue Sports app?
I'm not sure. I missed some of the breakdown there on all the stuff you were paying for, so I missed some of the numbers.
So it's $1,100 a year for basically YouTube TV for me.
Okay.
And it's $570 or so a year for Venue Sports.
Okay.
But I watch a lot of cable news.
Sure.
And I get NFL Network on YouTube TV.
And Venue Sports doesn't have regular cable news channels?
No, it's just sports.
Just sports. But it has NFL Network?
No.
No? Well, what's the point of that if you're not going to have the stuff you want?
So I'm sticking with YouTube TV. And I got to tell you, I'm getting tired of all of this Fracocta app, download, pay for.
Hey, you guys are the one canceling cable.
Well, I'm sorry, but here's why I canceled cable. So I lived in an apartment until 2018. It's a very nice part. And I had AT&T Uverse at the time.
Sure, yeah.
And then when I went to move to my first house in 2018, AT&T Uverse was not available. So my option was Comcast. So when I went to put in my order for Comcast, it was like $10 extra per box, per TV.
Plus your premium DVR service.
Plus more for DVR, plus more for HD.
Well, I don't know if they do that anymore.
This was 2018. This was not
for
2004.
HD. Jeez.
So like the total was like an extra $200 a month with all the extra crap.
Yeah.
And so I was at a Predators game and we had like a suite that night with a bunch of listeners. And Porth was telling me how he had gotten YouTube TV and somebody else was like, oh yeah, I got it too. It's great. And I got YouTube TV and I never looked back. And so I don't ever see myself using real cable again. I don't ever see it.
Well,
if I had to pick
then
a
you
streamer
can't go back
that wasn't
to your,
YouTube,
you can't go back to your flipping on the remote.
that I would get the DirecTV one just because you get the Predators and the Braves with that. Well, hopefully Bally Sports will die. It doesn't look like it's going to, but I wish it would. But I am not at all. Like, I am not interested at all whatsoever of switching to just this service that gives me TBS, TNT. So is it just the sports or do you get like the episodes of Friends that run on TBS all the time?
I would assume so. It'd be hard to.
So you get ESPN and all the ESPN channels, ABC, Fox, and all the Fox channels, and all the Friends episodes and episodes of Charmed on TNT when they're not playing hockey or basketball or baseball
I guess.
or college basketball. But then you still don't even get CBS for the NCAA tournament. Screw it.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. You used to have, if you had cable, you used to be able to just get all the games. And now that's not even the case. You have to have cable and you have to have extra streaming services on top of that, which is a pain.
So, again, I don't think I'm switching to it. I don't think anybody, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think it's going to fail. That's it for us. ESPN Radio next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.